Αγαπητές κυρίες και κύριοι, με ιδιαίτερη χαρά σας καλωσορίζω εκ μέρους του Ελληνοαμερικανικού Εμπορικού Επιμελητηρίου στο φετινό μας ExportUSA Forum, το οποίο συνδιοργανώνουμε με το Enterprise Greece. Λόγω των συνθηκών, το φετινό Forum θα πραγματοποιηθεί ψηφιακά. Το ExportUSA Forum συμπληρώνει 5 χρόνια ανελιπούς επιτυχημένης παρουσίας και αποτελεί το πλέον αναγνωρισμένο θεσμικό γεγονός πάνω σε θέματα εξαγωγών προς την αγορά των ΗΠΑ. Είμαστε ιδιαίτερα χαρούμενοι, γιατί καταφέραμε να διαμορφώσουμε ένα εξαιρετικό πρόγραμμα με πολύ ενδιαφέρουσες θεματικές που θα μας αναλύσει και παρουσιάσει μια εξαίρετη ομάδα ομιλητών, τους οποίους και ευχαριστούμε θερμά για τη συμμετοχή τους και τη συνεργασία τους με το επιμελητήριό μας. Θα ήθελα να ευχαριστήσω εδώ το Enterprise Greece για την υποστήριξή τους στη διοργάνωση του φετινού φόρουμ, αλλά και για τη συνεχή και επικοδομητική συνεργασία που έχουμε όλα τα τελευταία χρόνια. Θέλω να ευχαριστήσω θερμά τη συνεργατίδα μου, την Αθανασίου, για το ζήλο της στην οργάνωση αυτού του φόρουμ, αλλά και τον εν γέννη συντονισμό των εργασιών του τμήματος TradeUSA. Επίσης, να ευχαριστήσω τον κύριο Δημήτρη Καραβασίλη και την DK Marketing για τη χρόνια συνεργασία και υποστήριξη του φόρουμ, αλλά και άλλων πρωτοβουλειών του τμήματος TradeUSA. Να ευχαριστήσω το Retail Χορηγό Επικοινωνίας του συνεδρίου FMB Daily, καθώς και τους υπόλοιπους χορηγούς επικοινωνίας CNN Greece, AgroNews, EMEA, Export News, Startupper, Voria.gr και Business Partners. Τέλος, θέλω να ευχαριστήσω όλους εσάς που είστε μαζί μας σήμερα σε μία ακόμα εκδήλωση του επιμελητήριου μας. Θα καλέσω τώρα να δώσω το λόγο στον πρόεδρο του επιμελητηρίου, τον κύριο Νικόλαο Μπακατσέλο, για τον εισαγωγικό του χαιρετισμό. Κύριε Πρόεδρε.
Ηλία, ευχαριστώ πολύ. Αξιότιμοι κύριε Επίτροπε, κύριε Γενικέ, κύριοι Πρόεδροι, αγαπητοί κυρίες και κύριοι ομιλητές και συμμετέχοντες στο 5ο ExportUSA Forum. Η ανθρωπότητα βιώνει μια πρωτόγνωρη παγκόσμια υγειονομική κρίση. Μια κρίση η οποία έχει επιφέρει σημαντικές επιπτώσεις όχι μόνο στην υγεία, αλλά και στην παγκόσμια οικονομία και το εμπόριο. Αν και η αμερικανική αγορά, μια δυναμική και πολυπολιτισμική αγορά 330 εκατομμυρίων ανθρώπων, αποτελεί το στόχο των εταιριών παγκοσμίως, έχει και αυτή υποστεί ζημιές χωρίς προηγούμενο. Το Ελληνοαμερικανικό Εμπορικό Επιμελητήριο και το Τμήμα Διεθνούς Εμπορίου, TradeUSA, με γνώμονα τις αγκυλώσεις αυτές, πραγματοποιούν σήμερα το 5ο ExportUSA Forum. Το ετήσιο αυτό φόρουμ αναδεικνύει πρωτίστως την ισχυρή σχέση μεταξύ των δύο χωρών, η οποία μέσα από δράσεις και πρωτοβουλίες ενισχύεται συνεχώς. Αξίζει να σημειωθεί πως οι ελληνοαμερικανικές σχέσεις είναι ιδιαιτέρως ισχυρές, με τη δυναμική των διμερών εμπορικών δεσμών να αναβαθμίζονται συνεχώς. Οι δεσμοί αυτοί μπορούν να απεικονιστούν και αριθμητικά. Το εμπορικό ισοζύγιο Ελλάδος-ΗΠΑ από το 2011 έως και σήμερα παρουσιάζει θετικό πρόσημο για τη χώρα μας, με το ύψος του εμπορικού πλεονάσματος να ανέρχεται σε 82 εκατομμύρια για το έτος 2019, με μια ιστορικά υψηλή άνοδο κατά 22% σε σχέση με το 2017. Το πρώτο τρίμηνο του 2020, οι ελληνικές εξαγωγές αυξήθηκαν κατά 19,4% σε σχέση με το αντίστοιχο τρίμηνο του προηγούμενου έτους. Παρ' όλα αυτά, η ανωδική αυτή πορεία διεκόπη από την εμφάνιση της πανδημίας COVID-19, με αποτέλεσμα το δεύτερο τρίμηνο να καταγραφεί συρρίκνωση κατά 39% σε σχέση με το αντίστοιχο τρίμηνο του προηγούμενου έτους. Ένα ακόμα σημαντικό σκέλος των διμερών σχέσεων είναι και οι άμεσες ξένες επενδύσεις. Με την ελληνική οικονομία να ξεφεύγει σιγά-σιγά από την κρίση και το πολιτικο-οικονομικό περιβάλλον να βελτιώνεται συνεχώς, οι άμεσες ξένες επενδύσεις από την Αμερική παρουσιάζουν ανωδική τάση. Ωστόσο, αυτή η πορεία αλλάζει το 2019, με τις άμεσες ξένες επενδύσεις των ΗΠΑ προς την Ελλάδα να μειώνονται. Τοτική ήταν και η πορεία των άμεσων ξένων επενδύσεων της Ελλάδος στις ΗΠΑ για το 2019. Η Ελλάδα, παρά τα αυτά, στηρίζει 3.200 θέσεις εργασίας της ΗΠΑ μέσω των επενδύσεων, ενώ είναι η δεύτερη χώρα προορισμός των ελληνικών άμεσων ξένων επενδύσεων μετά την Κύπρο, σύμφωνα με το IMF σε μια έκθεση του 2018. Το Ελληνοαμερικανικό Εμπορικό Επιμελητήριο και το Τμήμα TradeUSA, μέσα από τα ετήσια ExportUSA Forum και τα workshop, λειτουργεί ως εφαλτήριο ενίσχυσης των σχέσεων Ελλάδος-ΗΠΑ, μεταφέροντας τους Έλληνες επιχειρηματίες στην τεχνογνωσία, αλλά και την απαραίτητη ενημέρωση, ώστε να μπορέσουν να διαμορφώσουν την επιχειρηματική τους στρατηγική για την επιτυχημένη διείσδυση στην αμερικανική αγορά. Το 5ο ExportUSA Forum, Trade Beyond COVID-19, The Way Forward, ιδιαίτερα φέτος, εν μέσω της πρωτοφανούς αυτής υγειονομικής κρίσης, μέσα από τη συμμετοχή εξαίρετων ομιλητών από την Ελλάδα και την Αμερική, θα προσπαθήσει να παρουσιάσει τις προκλήσεις που επέφερε η πανδημία και μέσα από τις εργασίες του συνεδρίου να προσφέρει στους συμμετέχοντες χρήσιμες συμβουλές για τη προσαρμογή τους στη νέα κανονικότητα. Παράλληλα, θα αναδείξει τις προοπτικές ανάπτυξης συνεργασιών των ελληνικών και αμερικανικών εταιριών, καθώς και τη μοναδική ευκαιρία των ελληνικών επιχειρήσεων να επανατοποθετηθούν στα νέα δεδομένα των ΗΠΑ με νέες συνεργασίες. Κλείνοντας το σύντομο χαιρετισμό μου, θα ήθελα να αναφερθώ σε μια ακόμα εξαιρετική πρωτοβουλία του Τμήματος Διεθνούς Εμπορίου TradeUSA του Επιμελητηρίου, τη δημιουργία του Greek Export Handbook, ενός σύγχρονου εξειδικευμένου οδηγού ελληνικών εξαγωγικών επιχειρήσεων για την αγορά των ΗΠΑ, ο οποίος θα αποτελέσει και αυτός με τη σειρά του ένα χρήσιμο εργαλείο για τις ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις που στοχεύουν στην αμερικανική αγορά. Και με αυτά τα λίγα λόγια, σας εύχομαι μια ευχάριστη και επικοδομητική συζήτηση. Και περνάω το λόγο στην Τίνα. Τίνα, it's over to you.
Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ, κύριε Μακατσέλο. Καλησπέρα και από μένα σε όσους μας βλέπουν από την Ελλάδα και καλημέρα σε όσους μας παρακολουθούν από την Αμερική. Θα ήθελα και εγώ να σας καλωσορίσω με τη σειρά μου στη σημερινή μας εκδήλωση. Πιστεύουμε πραγματικά πως αυτά που θα ακούσετε θα σας φανούν ιδιαίτερα χρήσιμα στα επαγγελματικά σας σχέδια για μια ομαλή και επιτυχημένη είσοδό σας στην αγορά των ΗΠΑ στην μετα-COVID-19 εποχή. Στόχος της σημερινής εκδήλωσης είναι να σας μεταφέρουμε την εικόνα του τι συμβαίνει στην άλλη πλευρά του Ατλαντικού και τι σημαίνει αυτό για τις ελληνικές εξαγωγικές επιχειρήσεις. Έχουμε μαζί μας εξαίρετους ομιλητές τόσο από την Αμερική όσο και από την Ελλάδα, οι οποίοι μέσα από τις παρουσιάσεις τους και τις ομιλίες τους θα αναδείξουν τον αντίκτυπο της πανδημίας στην αμερικανική αγορά, καθώς και θα παρουσιάσουν στρατηγικές που οι ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις καλούνται να υιοθετήσουν ώστε να ανταποκριθούν στη νέα κανονικότητα και να έχουν μια επιτυχημένη διείσδυση στην αγορά των ΗΠΑ. Πριν όμως ξεκινήσουμε, θα ήθελα να πω δύο λόγια για το TradeUSA και για τις δράσεις τους. Το TradeUSA είναι το τμήμα διεθνούς εμπορίου του Ελληνοαμερικανικού Εμπορικού Επιμελητηρίου. Πρόκειται ουσιαστικά για έναν εσωτερικό μηχανισμό, ο οποίος ιδρύθηκε το 2013, με στόχο να ενημερώνει, να εκπαιδεύει και να προσφέρει καθοδήγηση στις ελληνικές εξαγωγικές εταιρείες. Εστιάζουμε όλες μας τις ενέργειες και πρωτοβουλίες αποκλειστικά στην αμερικανική αγορά και μέσα από τις διάφορες δράσεις μας στοχεύουμε στην κάλυψη όλων των πιθανών αναγκών που ένας εξαγωγέας ή ένας δυνητικός εξαγωγέας μπορεί να κληθεί να αντιμετωπίσει. Η αποστολή μας είναι να αποτελούμε μια πλατφόρμα για όλα τα σημαντικά ζητήματα που αφορούν το διμερές εμπόριο μεταξύ των ΗΠΑ και της Ελλάδας, να παρακολουθούμε τις εξελίξεις, να προτείνουμε δράσεις και πρωτοβουλίες και να αναπτύσσουμε συνεχώς την εξειδίκευσή μας στον τομέα των εξαγωγών προς την Αμερική. Ποιες είναι οι υπηρεσίες που προσφέρουμε? Οι υπηρεσίες που προσφέρουμε κινούνται γύρω από 4 άξονες. Ο πρώτος άξονας είναι η εκπαίδευση. Αυτό το επιτυγχάνουμε μέσα από την διοργάνωση σεμιναρίων ανά την Ελλάδα και από το ExportUSA Forum, που αποτελεί και το ετήσιο συνεδριό μας. Ο δεύτερος άξονας είναι η υποστήριξη και η παροχή συμβουλευτικών υπηρεσιών σε θέματα διεθνούς εμπορίου και εξαγωγών, συμπεριλαμβανομένης της καθοδήγησης σχετικά με την κανονιστική συμμόρφωση των επιχειρήσεων με τις απαιτήσεις που διέπουν τον Αμερικανικό Οργανισμό Τροφίμων και Φαρμάκων, τον FDA, μέσω της αποκλειστικής μας συνεργασίας με την EAS Consulting Group. Ο τρίτος άξονας είναι η διασύνδεση των ελληνικών επιχειρήσεων με αμερικανούς εισαγωγείς και δίκτυα διανομής, η οποία επιτυγχάνεται μέσα από τη διοργάνωση networking events και επιχειρηματικών αποστολών, καθώς και παρουσίαση εμπορικές εκθέσεις. Τέλος, μέσα από τα διάφορα κανάλια μας, ενημερώνουμε την ελληνική επιχειρηματική εξαγωγική κοινότητα για τις τελευταίες εξελίξεις και σημαντικά θέματα που τους αφορούν. Με στόχο λοιπόν τη συνεχή εκπαίδευση των επιχειρήσεων που θέλουν να διεισδύσουν ή να επεκτείνουν περαιτέρω τις επιχειρηματικές τους δραστηριότητες στην αγορά των ΗΠΑ και τη διάδοση της γνώσης σε εθνικό επίπεδο, διοργανώνουμε τη σειρά σεμιναρίων Prepare, Plan, Execute. Τα σεμινάρια αυτά είναι δωρεάν και πραγματοποιούνται σε οικονομικές πόλεις της περιφέρειας σε συνεργασία με τους τοπικούς φορείς και τα επιμελητήρια. Μέχρι στιγμής έχουμε κάνει περίπου 30 workshops σε 20 πόλεις της Ελλάδας, ενώ έχουμε εκπαιδεύσει πάνω από 500 επιχειρήσεις. Το 2019, μάλιστα, πήγαμε στην Καβάλα, στην Πάτρα, στην Καλαμάτα και στη Χίο. Όλα αυτά βέβαια ήταν στην προ-COVID εποχή, ευελπιστούμε όμως πολύ σύντομα να μπορέσουμε πάλι να τα κάνουμε. Προχωρώντας, θα ήθελα να αναφερθώ στις ενέργειες του τμήματος, στις οποίες προχωρήσαμε ανταποκρινόμενοι στο ξέσπασμα της πανδημίας, με στόχο μας να προσφέρουμε πληροφόρηση σε ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις. Καταγράφαμε και ενημερώναμε σε εβδομαδιαία βάση μέσω της ιστοσελίδας μας την εξέλιξη των κυριότερων εμπορικών εκθέσεων, δηλαδή ποιες ακυρώνονταν, ποιες άλλαζαν ημερομηνία και ποιες άλλαζαν σε ψηφιακή μορφή. Συντάξαμε ένα white paper σχετικά με την αποτύπωση της κατάστασης στην αγορά των ΗΠΑ, καθώς και τις προτάσεις μας και ενέργειες που θα οδηγήσουν στην σταδιακή ανάκαμψη της εξωστρέφειάς μας προς την αγορά των ΗΠΑ, το οποίο μάλιστα κατατέθηκε και στην ελληνική κυβέρνηση. Μέσω του ειδικού section στο site μας, ενημερώναμε για τις εξελίξεις σχετικά με βασικά ζητήματα που απασχολούσαν τις ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις αναφορικά με τις εμπορικές τους συνεργασίες με την αγορά των ΗΠΑ. Παράλληλα, διοργανώσαμε τον Ιούλιο ένα webinar, ενημερώνοντας την ελληνική επιχειρηματική εξαγωγική κοινότητα για τον αντίκτυπο της πανδημίας στην αμερικανική αγορά και τον αμερικανό καταναλωτή. Κάναμε μία flash survey, ώστε να μπορέσουμε να αποτυπώσουμε τα προβλήματα των ελληνικών επιχειρήσεων, ενώ παράλληλα είχαμε την τιμή να συμμετέχουμε και ως καλεσμένοι ομιλητές σε webinars άλλων φορέων. Τέλος, σχεδιάσαμε το The Greek Exports Handbook, έναν οδηγό για τον οποίο θα ενημερωθείτε αναλυτικά σε λίγο, βλέποντας το κενό που δημιούργησαν οι εμπορικές εκθέσεις και η ακύρωση των επαγγελματικών ταξιδιών στα αναπτυξιακά σχέδια των ελληνικών εξαγωγέων προς την Αμερική. Θα ήθελα επίσης να αναφέρω πως το επιμελητήριό μας τον Ιούλιο κατέθεσε υπόμνημα στην Αμερικανική κυβέρνηση στο πλαίσιο της δημόσιας διαβούλευσης για τη δεύτερη αναθεώρηση των δασμών, ζητώντας την εξαίρεση των ελληνικών προϊόντων. Κλείνοντας, ευελπιστούμε πως σήμερα στο 5ο ExportUSA Forum και χάρη στους διακεκριμένους ομιλητές μας, θα μπορέσετε να κατανοήσετε τον αντίκτυπο της πανδημίας στην αμερικανική αγορά, να μάθετε το νέο προφίλ του Αμερικανού καταναλωτή, να ανακαλύψετε πώς να υιοθετήσετε εξαγωγικές στρατηγικές που να ανταποκρίνονται στις νέες απαιτήσεις και στη νέα κανονικότητα, να αναγνωρίσετε αναπτυξιακές ευκαιρίες και τέλος να κατανοήσετε το κανονιστικό πλαίσιο συμμόρφωσης με τον Αμερικανικό Οργανισμό Τροφίμων και Φαρμάκων, τον FDA. Εύχομαι ένα καλό και επικοδομητικό συνέδριο. Σας ενθαρρύνουμε να χρησιμοποιήσετε το live chat feature και να στέλνετε τις ερωτήσεις σας προς τους ομιλητές μας. Σας ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Είμαστε διαθέσιμοι στα στοιχεία που βλέπετε. Και τώρα θα ήθελα να καλωσορίσω τον κύριο Δημήτρη Καραβασίλη, σύμβουλο του Διεθνούς Τμήματος Εμπορίου και founder και CEO της DK Marketing και της Idea Markets, προκειμένου να μας μιλήσει για τις ελληνικές εξαγωγές προς την αγορά των ΗΠΑ. Κύριε Καραβασίλη.
Καλησπέρα και από μένα. Σας εύχομαι να έχουμε ένα πολύ επικοδομητικό και όμορφο φόρουμ. Θεωρούμε από τη δική μας την πλευρά ότι και εμείς ως advisors του Ελληνοαμερικανικού Επιμελητηρίου έχουμε καταβάλει όλη τη δυνατή προσπάθεια και συγχαρητήρια στην Κίνα και σε όλη την ομάδα, στον κύριο Σπιρτόνια και στον πρόεδρο, τον κύριο Μπακατσέλο, για όλες αυτές τις πρωτοβουλίες. Θα ήθελα λοιπόν να ξεκινήσουμε, να δούμε μαζί μια πρώτη προσέγγιση σχετικά με την αγορά των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών, πώς έχουν εξελιχθεί τα πράγματα, με σκοπό μετά να δώσουμε με αυτόν τον τρόπο το ένασμα για να ξεκινήσουμε και την κουβέντα και τη συζήτηση και με τους συνομιλητές τους διεθνείς. Και όλα αυτά πάντοτε με την ευχή να μπορέσουμε να βρεθούμε από κοντά. Αυτό που θα αναλύσουμε σήμερα λοιπόν είναι το διμερές εμπόριο μεταξύ Ελλάδας-Αμερικής, τα ελληνικά προϊόντα τα οποία πηγαίνουν στην Αμερική, στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες Αμερικής, τι ακολουθεί, πώς οι ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις μπορούν να υιοθετήσουν διάφορες πολιτικές και στρατηγικές έτσι ώστε να βγουν κερδισμένοι από την επόμενη κανονικότητα, όπως συνηθίζουμε να λέμε, και πώς θα μπορούσαμε να διαχειριστούμε τα κανάλια διανομής με σκοπό των αλλαγών των οποίων συμβαίνουν όλο αυτό το διάστημα, διότι οι αλλαγές πλέον είναι δομικές. Ας ρίξουμε μια πρώτη ματιά. Μέσα από αυτό το σχεδιάγραμμα αντιλαμβανόμαστε την πορεία των εισαγωγών και των εξαγωγών. Εδώ ήθελα να επισημάνω ότι με την μπλε γραμμή είναι οι εξαγωγές προς την Αμερική, από την Ελλάδα προς την Αμερική, και η κόκκινη γραμμή είναι οι εισαγωγές από την Αμερική προς την Ελλάδα. Βλέπουμε λοιπόν, αν πάρουμε υπόψη μας το τελευταίο τρίμηνο του 2020, δηλαδή μέχρι τα στοιχεία και του Σεπτεμβρίου του 2020, θα δούμε ότι υπάρχει μια ουσιαστικά μείωση σχετικά με το τρίμηνο του 2019, της τάξης του 14%, δηλαδή η γραμμή εδώ που βλέπετε από το 350 έχει πέσει εδώ περίπου στο 300, και αν θα δείτε την κόκκινη γραμμή, από το τρίτο τρίμηνο του 2019, όπου ήταν κάτι λιγότερο από το 350, σχεδόν ήταν ισοζύγιο, βλέπουμε λοιπόν ότι έχει φτάσει πλέον γύρω στα 180 σαν γραμμή βάσης. Έτσι λοιπόν βλέπουμε ότι έχουμε ένα 47% μείωση των εισαγωγών εξαιτίας του COVID-19 και βλέπουμε και τις διαφορές ανάμεσα στο δεύτερο τρίμηνο και το τρίτο τρίμηνο πόσο πολύ έχουν επηρεαστεί. Τα 10 κυριότερα προϊόντα τα οποία εξάγονται στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες είναι φυσικά τα πετρελοειδή και αντιστοίχως οι εισαγωγές είναι τα πετρελοειδή. Μετά έρχονται λαχανικά, φρούτα, ξηρή καρπή, αλουμίνια, υποπροϊόντα και προϊόντα τσιμέντου, δομικά υλικά. Υπάρχουν μετά κάποια προϊόντα τα οποία είναι εκτός κλάσεις, δηλαδή είναι στις διαφορετικές, όπως ονομάζουμε, κλάσεις, ηλεκτρικά μηχανήματα και συνεχίζουμε με τον χάλιβα, σίδηρο κτλ. Εάν πάμε από την άλλη πλευρά, αυτό το οποίο εισάγουμε είναι, όπως βλέπουμε, αντιδραστήρες, διάφορες συσκευές μηχανικές. Έχουμε επίσης τα υλικά τα οποία έχουν να κάνουν κυρίως με ανταλλακτικά αεροσκαφών, μέταλλα, αλουμίνιο και γενικότερα βλέπουμε πάνω, έχουμε το χαλκό, διάφορα είδη χαλκού, συστήματα οπτικά, οπότε βλέπουμε ότι γενικότερα οι σχέσεις μας είναι κυρίως βιομηχανικά προϊόντα τα οποία εισάγουμε από την πλευρά της Αμερικής προς την Ελλάδα και εκείνο που εξάγουμε, ενώ οι περισσότεροι στο μυαλό τους έχουν τα τρόφιμα, βλέπουμε ότι τα αλουμίνια μαζί με τα τρόφιμα, αλλά και κάποια άλλα προϊόντα που θα τα δούμε χαρακτηριστικά παρακάτω, είναι μέσα σε αυτό. Εδώ λοιπόν παρατηρούμε μέσα από αυτό το χάρτη πώς γίνεται η διανομή και πού ακριβώς πηγαίνουν, σε ποιες πολιτείες. Γι' αυτό ακριβώς και εμείς σαν εταιρεία και με την Idea Monkeys που διαθέτουμε με γραφεία στην Αμερική και στο Λονδίνο, αλλά και με την Decay, αυτό το οποίο λέμε είναι οι Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες Αμερικής. Βλέπετε λοιπόν τη διασπορά που υπάρχει και πού έχουν προορισμό τα προϊόντα. Υπόψη ότι τα προϊόντα αυτά τα οποία σημειώνονται εδώ σε αυτό το χάρτη που έχουμε δημιουργήσει είναι τα μέρη τα οποία εισάγονται. Δεν είναι τα μέρη απαραίτητα τα οποία καταναλώνονται. Έτσι λοιπόν βλέπουμε ότι έχουμε ηλεκτρονικές συσκευές, βλέπουμε τα razors, τα οποία είναι μια συγκεκριμένη εταιρεία που εδρεύει στην Ελλάδα, έχει σχεδόν κατά κύριο λόγο βρίσκεται στο Τέξας, αφού εκεί είναι και οι βασικές εισαγωγές. Και από εκεί πέρα βλέπουμε τα υπόλοιπα προϊόντα μαζί με τις αξίες τους που βρίσκονται σε διάφορα μέρη. Χαρακτηριστικό είναι ότι η Νέα Υόρκη και η Καλιφόρνια είναι οι αποδέκτες των προϊόντων ελιάς και ελαιολάδου. Καθώς επίσης και η Μινεσότα έχει να κάνει με ηλεκτρονικές συσκευές όπως το Μιζούρι, Αριζόνα και το κομμάτι επάνω που βλέπουμε της Ουάσιγκτον εδώ. Τι είναι αυτό το οποίο πρέπει να περιμένουμε και τι είναι αυτό το οποίο έρχεται. Σίγουρα ο κόσμος αυτή τη στιγμή βιώνει μια τεράστια, μια συγκλονιστική αλλαγή εξαιτίας του COVID-19. Η νέα πανδημία, αυτό το οποίο έχει επηρεάσει είναι την καθημερινότητα και τις ζωές όλων μας, πόσο περισσότερο των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών, της αγοράς των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών και φυσικά έχει επηρεάσει τον τρόπο με τον οποίο οι Αμερικανοί καταναλωτές συμπεριφέρονται. Είναι πολύ σημαντικό για τους οργανισμούς να μπορέσουν να αντιδράσουν σε αυτές τις αλλαγές, καθώς επίσης στις ανάγκες τις νέες που δημιουργούνται στους καταναλωτές, καθώς επίσης στις προτιμήσεις τους και τελικά στην καθημερινή συμπεριφορά τους. Βλέπουμε εδώ λοιπόν ότι οι καταναλωτές μέσα από αυτή τη διαδικασία έχουν γίνει πολύ πιο σκεπτικοί και μέσα από αυτό το διάγραμμα και τη μελέτη της μιας πολυεθνικής εταιρείας, βλέπετε το source της McKinsey, βλέπουμε λοιπόν εδώ ότι ουσιαστικά έχουμε ένα μέσο όρο περίπου 37%, ακριβώς επειδή έχει αυξηθεί πάρα πολύ η αβεβαιότητα, το 37% των Αμερικανών καταναλωτών έχουν γίνει πολύ πιο σκεπτικοί πού θα ξοδέψουν και πού θα βάλουν τα χρήματά τους. Επιστρέφοντας πίσω, θα ήθελα να σας δείξω εδώ, στον τελευταία γραμμή, ότι αυτό πιστοποιείται με ένα περίπου 20% και βλέπετε ότι τα άκρα, δηλαδή το μπλε και το γκρι, είναι αυτό το οποίο μας δίνει ουσιαστικά πόσο πολύ έχει μεταβληθεί όλο το κομμάτι που αφορά είτε το brand, είτε το τι προτίθενται και τι λίστες φτιάχνουν για να μπορέσουν να προχωρήσουν σε αγορές. Σίγουρα η ηλεκτρονικά, το digital shopping, οι ηλεκτρονικές αγορές ήρθαν για να μείνουν. Έτσι λοιπόν, βλέποντας ποιο είναι η πραγματική χρήση των καναλιών online πριν και τι περιμένετε μετά, τι αναμένετε μετά το COVID-19, ανακατηγορία προϊόντων, βλέπουμε εδώ ότι προ-COVID και το expected growth after COVID-19, δηλαδή το τι αναμένεται, είναι ένα τεράστιο νούμερο. Θα δείτε χαρακτηριστικά εδώ ότι τα accessories, τα jewelries, τα skincares και ακόμη τα consumer electronics και γενικότερα οτιδήποτε αφορά προϊόντα τα οποία είναι δεύτερης ανάγκης, καθώς επίσης όμως και τα groceries που είναι πρώτης ανάγκης, βλέπετε λοιπόν ότι εδώ τα περισσότερα προϊόντα είναι αυτά και οι κατηγορίες προϊόντων είναι αυτά τα οποία πλέον θα προμηθεύονται οι καταναλωτές μέσα από online stores. Έτσι λοιπόν βλέπουμε ότι οι online αγορές αναμένεται να αυξηθούν από 10% έως 30% μετά το COVID μέσα από σχεδόν σε όλες τις κατηγορίες προϊόντων. Ερχόμαστε λοιπόν πλέον να δούμε μια καινούργια τάση, η οποία είναι η τάση της διασκέδασης μέσα στο σπίτι. Νομίζω ότι όλοι μας πλέον το νιώθουμε αυτό. Έτσι λοιπόν, για την Αμερική συγκεκριμένα έχουν αυξηθεί οι δραστηριότητες μέσα στο σπίτι, όπως η τηλεόραση, το video content, τα live news και βλέπετε το cooking, το οποίο έχει εκτοξευτεί στο 33%. Έχει υποκαταστήσει λοιπόν σε ένα πολύ μεγάλο βαθμό το food service, το οποίο υπήρχε τα προηγούμενα πριν COVID, γιατί το περισσότερος κόσμος, όπως γνωρίζετε, τρώει έξω. Έτσι λοιπόν, οι Αμερικανοί ξοδεύουν περισσότερο χρόνο στα σπίτια τους και φυσικά έχουν δραστηριότητες όπως είναι το να δείπνήσουν στο σπίτι, να μαγειρέψουν, να γυμναστούν και όπως αντιλαμβάνεστε αυτές οι δραστηριότητες είναι που φέρνουν και μία αλυσίδα από διάφορες αλλαγές και συγκεκριμένες αυξήσεις σε άλλους κλάδους. Για παράδειγμα, το home dining έχει άρρηκτη σχέση με τα αξεσουάρ και γενικότερα με ό,τι έχει να κάνει με το kitchenware και με το tableware. Δηλαδή, ό,τι έχει να κάνει με τα sandwich και έχει να κάνει με διάφορα κομμάτια τα οποία, με διάφορους κλάδους οι οποίοι βοηθούν στο να γίνει πιο όμορφο το home dining. Το cooking το ίδιο, έχει οι συσκευές, τα εργαλεία, διάφορα αξεσουάρ της κουζίνας, είναι σαφώς και αυτά σε αύξηση, όπως επίσης και τα προϊόντα, τα ημιέτοιμα, τα οποία μπορούν να βοηθήσουν στο easy cooking και να εκπαιδεύσουν τους καταναλωτές. Όπως και το exercising, το οποίο και αυτό είναι μία άμεση προτεραιότητα με τα όργανα γυμναστικής ή με την καλύτερη διατροφή. Όλα αυτά είναι τάσεις οι οποίες εξυπηρετούν και βοηθούν πάρα πολύ τις επιχειρήσεις. Έτσι λοιπόν βλέπουμε ότι ο COVID-19 ουσιαστικά αυτό που κάνει είναι ότι εκτόξευσε τις ανησυχίες σχετικά με την βιωσιμότητα γενικότερα του πλανήτη και με θέματα που έχει να κάνει και με τις ευαισθησίες που έχουμε απέναντι στον πλανήτη. Το 65% λοιπόν των καταναλωτών στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες, βάσει ερευνών που έχουν γίνει, είναι πολύ πιο σκεπτικοί πλέον από ό,τι ήταν παλιότερα σχετικά με τις επιπτώσεις που θα έχει η κατανάλωση των προϊόντων που κάνουν στη νέα κανονικότητα σχετικά με το πόσο επηρεάζεται το περιβάλλον μέσα από αυτά. Δημιουργώντας λοιπόν όλες αυτές τις συνθήκες, πηγαίνουμε λοιπόν από το multi-channel στο omni-channel. Βλέπουμε λοιπόν ότι μέχρι τώρα τα περισσότερα δίκτυα ουσιαστικά επικοινωνούσαν όπως και ο πελάτης επικοινωνούσε μεμονωμένα, διαφορετικά, σε πολυκαναλική βάση. Πλέον λοιπόν πηγαίνουμε και έχουμε μία ενιαία μορφή όπου ο πελάτης είναι στο κέντρο και έχει όλη αυτή την μεταβολή μέσα από ένα ενιαίο κανάλι. Έτσι λοιπόν η κοινωνική απόσταση και η φυσική απόσταση και το να μπορούμε να μένουμε στο σπίτι, ουσιαστικά αυτό το οποίο προσδιορίζει είναι, μας αναγκάζει περισσότερους retailers, περισσότερους λιανέμπορους, είτε είναι μεγάλοι είτε είναι μικροί, να επιταχύνουν τις πρωτοβουλίες για τη δημιουργία ενιαίων καναλιών διάθεσης και επικοινωνίας. Τώρα, πώς μπορούν οι ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις να υιοθετήσουν συστήματα και στρατηγικές και τακτικές με σκοπό να μπορέσουν να ανταποκριθούν στην επόμενη μέρα της κανονικότητας στην αγορά της Αμερικής? Το πρώτο είναι ότι θα πρέπει να δημιουργήσουν την ανθεκτικότητα, έτσι, δηλαδή ουσιαστικά να μπορούν να είναι ανθεκτικές στα κανάλια προμηθειών και στα κανάλια διανομής. Θα πρέπει να μπορούν να επιταχύνουν την τεχνολογική τους μεταρρύθμιση και να προσαρμοστούν γρήγορα σε πρακτικά ζητήματα της τεχνολογικής μεταρρύθμισης. Κάτι τέτοιο είναι αυτό που συμβαίνει σε όλους μας, όπως και σήμερα, που έχουμε αυτή την ηλεκτρονική πλέον διάδραση και όχι τα συνέδρια από κοντά. Φανταστείτε πόσο περισσότερο αυτό επηρεάζει τις συναλλαγές. Επίσης, το brand repositioning, δηλαδή η επανατοποθέτηση του brand στις ΗΠΑ και στην αγορά. Φανταστείτε ότι μέχρι τώρα το τι έχει συμβεί, είτε είναι κακό, είτε είναι καλό, είτε υπήρχαν brands οι οποίες δεν τα είχαν καταφέρει καλά, είτε ήταν προϊόντα που δεν τα είχαν καταφέρει τόσο καλά, είτε κάποια άλλα τα οποία βρίσκανε δυσκολίες, όλα πλέον ξαναγράφεται η αγορά από την αρχή. Αυτό λοιπόν δημιουργεί πολύ μεγάλες μεν απειλές για τις πολύ μεγάλες εταιρείες, δημιουργεί όμως τεράστιες ευκαιρίες για τις μικρές εταιρείες, οι οποίες μπορούν μέσα από την διαδικασία της στρατηγικής τους θεώρησης να μπορέσουν να επανατοποθετηθούν, να δουν τι ακριβώς χρειάζονται οι καταναλωτές και με πρόγραμμα να πάνε και να στηθούν και να τοποθετηθούν σε ένα πολύ μικρό και ένα πολύ συγκεκριμένο κομμάτι των αγορών. Το ίδιο ακριβώς συμβαίνει και με την υιοθέτηση διαφόρων ενεργειών εταιρικής κοινωνικής ευθύνης για να μπορέσουν να ενισχύσουν το brand. Και εδώ δεν είναι μόνο για μεγάλες εταιρείες αυτό, για να μην παρεξηγηθούμε. Αυτό υπάρχει σε πολλές εταιρείες, ακόμη και πολύ μικρές. Εμείς το έχουμε εφαρμόσει σε πολύ μικρές εταιρείες, όπως για παράδειγμα μια ελληνική εταιρεία πελάτη μας, η οποία, και μια άλλη η οποία ήταν πολεμική εταιρεία, έχει φτάσει στην Αμερική, πήγε σε ένα πολύ μικρό μέρος. Εκεί λοιπόν έκανε κάποια charities, κάποια donations, δηλαδή κάποιες μικρές προσφορές σε επίπεδο κοινότητας, και αυτό όλο το πράγμα έχει λειτουργήσει θετικά και έχει μπει μέσα στις ζωές τα συγκεκριμένα προϊόντα των συγκεκριμένων περιοχών. Όσον αφορά τώρα την αλλαγή, αυτό είναι κάτι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό, διότι θα πρέπει ουσιαστικά να αναδιαμορφώσουμε τις συνεργασίες μας, και υπάρχει μια τρομακτική δυνατότητα να επαναπροσδιορίσουμε και να δημιουργήσουμε καινούριες συνεργασίες και καινούριους συνεταιρισμούς. Ακόμη και με τους ανταγωνιστές μας, μέχρι χθες θα μπορούσαμε πλέον να γίνουμε συναγωνιστές, να ενώσουμε δυνάμεις για να μπορέσουμε να στοχεύσουμε σε ένα πολύ συγκεκριμένο κομμάτι της αγοράς. Και πλέον η αγορά ακούει. Πώς όμως μπορούμε να διαχειριστούμε όλες αυτές τις αλλαγές και όλες αυτές τις δομικές αλλαγές που γίνονται στα κανάλια διανομής? Το πρώτο λοιπόν που πρέπει να κάνουμε είναι να μπορέσουμε να έχουμε την προτεραιοποίηση. Το δεύτερο είναι να ανταποκριθούμε, να ανακάμψουμε και στο τέλος να μπορέσουμε να αναπτυχθούμε. Το πρώτο κομμάτι λοιπόν χρειάζεται να αποκωδικοποιήσουμε τις νέες σχέσεις και τις επαφές με τα κανάλια διανομής. Το δεύτερο είναι να διαχειριστούμε τους εμπορικούς περιορισμούς, είτε λέγονται δασμοί, είτε εμπόδια, για να μπορέσουμε να επαναπροσδιορίσουμε ουσιαστικά και την τεχνολογική μας και να δημιουργήσουμε μια τεχνολογική βάση στα κανάλια διανομής, με σκοπό να μπορέσουμε να παρέχουμε τα προϊόντα πίσω στην κανονικότητα και να διατηρηθεί κυρίως η κινητικότητα της εταιρείας. Δηλαδή θα πρέπει η εταιρεία να κινείται, να μην είναι στάσιμη περιμένοντας τις εξελίξεις. Το τρίτο είναι να μπορέσουμε να αναπτύξουμε νέους οδικούς χάρτες, έτσι ώστε να συνδυάσουμε και να ενδυναμώσουμε τις δυνατότητες των μεταφορών, των logistics, και να διαχειριστούμε τους κινδύνους. Και τέλος, θα πρέπει να μοχλεύσουμε ουσιαστικά τα κανάλια τα οποία οδηγούν απευθείας στον καταναλωτή. Βλέπετε λοιπόν ότι έχει γίνει μια τεράστια αλλαγή με σκοπό πλέον τα κανάλια να έχουν γίνει B2BC. Αυτό σημαίνει λοιπόν ότι πλέον περνάμε κατευθείαν στον καταναλωτή. Ο τελικός χρήστης, ο τελικός καταναλωτής είναι αυτός που πλέον ενδιαφέρει και έχει λόγο ακόμη και στην παραγωγή του προϊόντος, είτε αυτό γίνεται στην Ελλάδα, είτε γίνεται σε άλλες χώρες. Και αυτό φυσικά εξαρτάται πλέον, και βλέπετε πόσο πολύτιμο είναι σχετικά και με τις νέες συμφωνίες που έχουν υπογραφεί μεταξύ το Asia Pacific, μόλις πριν από μία εβδομάδα, για το ελεύθερο εμπόριο μεταξύ της Κίνας, της Ιαπωνίας και των ασιατικών χωρών με την Αυστραλία, και όλη αυτή η αλλαγή η οποία επέρχεται πλέον. Έτσι λοιπόν οι νέες αλλαγές, οι νέες προκλήσεις είναι καθοδόν. Αυτό το οποίο χρειάζεται να κάνουμε είναι να τις αγκαλιάσουμε, και κάνω λογοπαίγνιο με το huge, να αγκαλιάσουμε τις νέες προκλήσεις, να μην τις φοβόμαστε και σίγουρα οι ευκαιρίες για τις ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις πραγματικά είναι πάρα πολύ μεγάλες. Σας ευχαριστώ.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ, κύριε Καραβασίλη. Και τώρα θα ήθελα να δώσω τον λόγο στον κύριο Ηλία Σπετούνια, προκειμένου να μας παρουσιάσει την πρωτοβουλία The Greek Exports Handbook. Κύριε Σπετούνια, σας ακούμε.
Ευχαριστώ, Τίνα. Ήρθε η ώρα. Καταρχάς, να πω πολύ ενδιαφέρουσα η παρουσίαση, Δημήτρη. Εξαιρετικές πληροφορίες. Εγώ με μεγάλη χαρά θα ήθελα να σας ανακοινώσω σήμερα μια νέα πρωτοβουλία που αναλαμβάνει το Αμερικανικό Επιμελητήριο και στην οποία αναφέρθηκε προηγουμένως και ο πρόεδρος, ο κ. Μπακατσέλος, και αφορά την έκδοση του Export Guide για τις αγορές των ΗΠΑ. Θα προσπαθήσω εδώ να σας δείξω ορισμένες διαφάνειες. Δώστε μου μόνο OK. Νομίζω ότι βλέπουμε όλοι τώρα. Το The Greek Exports Handbook, λοιπόν, είναι μια νέα πρωτοβουλία που αναλαμβάνει το τμήμα TradeUSA του Ελληνοαμερικανικού Εμπορικού Επιμελητηρίου και που αφορά στη στοχευμένη προώθηση των ελληνικών εταιριών στις αγορές των ΗΠΑ. Το βλέπουμε εδώ ουσιαστικά σαν ένα βιβλίο, αλλά στην ουσία δεν είναι βιβλίο, θα είναι μια ψηφιακή πλατφόρμα. Μπορούμε να πούμε ότι αυτή η ιδέα γεννήθηκε με αφορμή την κρίση του κορονοϊού και την αναβολή σημαντικών εκθεσιακών γεγονότων, στα οποία συμμετείχαν αρκετές ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις. Θεωρήσαμε λοιπόν ως Επιμελητήριο ότι είναι άκρο σημαντικό για τις ελληνικές εταιρείες να συνεχίσουν να προωθούνται και να προβάλλονται. Είναι αυτό που αναφέρθηκε ο κ. Καραβασίλης προηγουμένως, ότι πρέπει να συνεχίζεις να είσαι παρόν. Να συνεχίζουν να προωθούνται και να προβάλλονται στη ΣΥΠΑ και μάλιστα με ένα πολύ περισσότερο στοχευμένο τρόπο. Άρα λοιπόν το Greek Export Book, το Handbook μάλλον, αποτελεί ένα νέο εργαλείο με όλες τις σωστές και απαραίτητες πληροφορίες για την ενημέρωση εισαγωγέων και αγοραστικών δικτύων στη ΣΥΠΑ για τις ελληνικές εταιρείες και τα προϊόντα τους. Εδώ τώρα που κυλώ τις διαφάνειες, βλέπετε, όπως σας είπα και προηγουμένως, το Handbook εν είδος εκτυπωμένου βιβλίου. Δεν θα είναι όμως μόνο εκτυπωμένο. Θα αποτελεί ουσιαστικά μια δυναμική ψηφιακή πλατφόρμα στο διαδίκτυο με σημαντικά εργαλεία δικτύωσης και ανταλλαγής πληροφοριών και η οποία θα έχει τη δυνατότητα να ανανεώνεται συνεχώς. Ο οδηγός θα περιλαμβάνει αρχικά γενικές πληροφορίες, όπως στοιχεία για τις διμερείς εμπορικές σχέσεις, στοιχεία και πίνακες για κάθε τομέα και περιοχή της χώρας μας, τις ιδιαιτερότητες, τα προϊόντα της κτλ. Κατάλογο με όλες τις αμερικανικές εκθέσεις, αναφορές στα προτερήματα και τη δυναμική των ελληνικών εξαγωγών. Εν συνεχεία, θα περιλαμβάνει πληροφορίες και στοιχεία για τις εταιρείες τις ίδιες, όπως προφάιλ της εταιρείας, χώρες που εξάγει προϊόντα, διακρίσεις που έχει λάβει, πιστοποίησεις που διαθέτει η εταιρεία, καινοτομίες που έχει αναπτύξει οι εταιρείες και στα προϊόντα της, συμμετοχές σε διεθνείς εκθέσεις και πολλά άλλα ενδιαφέροντα στοιχεία για τον οποιοδήποτε δίκτυο αγοραστών θέλει να δει στην Ελλάδα ορισμένα ελληνικά προϊόντα. Να πω κάτι εδώ, ότι τα προϊόντα δεν θα αφορούν μόνο τον αγροδιατροφικό κλάδο, αλλά θα επεκτείνονται σε πολλούς και διάφορους τομείς. Ο οδηγός λοιπόν είτε θα είναι εκτυπωμένος είτε ψηφιακός, θα αποσταλεί προς ενημέρωση σε ένα ευρύτατο δίκτυο επαφών που μόνο το Ελληνοαμερικανικό Εμπορικό Επιμελητήριο με την εγκυρότητα που διαθέτει μπορεί να την έχει στην κατοχή του. Και αυτό το δίκτυο θα περιλαμβάνει αγοραστές, δίκτυο αγοραστών, δίκτυο εισαγωγέων, μεσίτες, διανομής, όλα τα εμπορικά αμερικανικά επιμελητήρια και αναχώρα αλλά και αναπολιτεία στις ΗΠΑ, τους εμπορικούς ακόλουθους της χώρας μας, της ΗΠΑ και φυσικά και άλλων χωρών, διεθνείς εμπορικούς οργανισμούς, και από τη στιγμή που ο οδηγός θα είναι στο διαδίκτυο, θα είναι ουσιαστικά εν δυνάμει προσιτός σε πολύ ευρύτερο κόσμο. Σύντομα θα στείλουμε μια ενημερωτική επιστολή σε ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις για τη συμμετοχή τους στον κατάλογο αυτό. Προσδοκούμε ότι θα έχουμε μια δυναμική ανταπόκριση από τις εταιρείες που είτε ήδη εξάγουν στη ΣΥΠΑ ή επιθυμούν να το κάνουν στο άμεσο μέλλον. Το τμήμα TradeUSA θα είναι στη διάθεσή του φυσικά για κάθε ενδιαφερόμενο για περισσότερες πληροφορίες. Και μετά από τη σύντομη αυτή παρουσίαση του οδηγού, θα ήθελα να δώσω το λόγο στην αγαπητή φίλη μας, κυρία Μπέτη Αλεξανδροπούλου, εκτελεστική διευθύντρια και μέλος του ΔΣ του Enterprise Greece, για τη δική της παρουσίαση. Αγαπητή Μπέτη, έχεις το λόγο. Ευχαριστώ.
Ευχαριστώ, Ηλία. Αξιότιμε κύριε Πρόεδρε του Ελληνοαμερικανικού Επιμελητηρίου, αξιότιμες κυρίες και κύριοι. Θα ήθελα να ευχαριστήσω το Επιμελητήριο για την πρόσκληση να συμμετέχω σήμερα στο USA Export Forum, το 5ο. Η σημερινή εκδήλωση τελεί υπό την αιγίδα του Υπουργείου Εξωτερικών και της Enterprise Greece. Αργότερα, στην κεντρική ομιλία, θα ακούσουμε και τον νέο Γενικό Γραμματέα Διεθνών Οικονομικών Σχέσεων και Εξωστρέφειας και πρόεδρο της Enterprise Greece, κύριο Γιάννη Μυρλή. Η Enterprise Greece, πέρα από την αιγίδα, υποστηρίζει και ως στρατηγικός εταίρος τη σημερινή εκδήλωση. Οι Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες Αμερικής είναι σημαντικός και σταθερός εμπορικός μας εταίρος με μεγάλες προοπτικές ανάπτυξης. Η Enterprise Greece, ως ο εθνικός φορέας προώθησης των ελληνικών εξαγωγών και προσέλκυση ξένων επενδύσεων στην Ελλάδα, συνεργάζεται στενά με το Ελληνοαμερικάνικο Επιμελητήριο για την διεύρυνση αυτών των προοπτικών. Πρόσφατα, μάλιστα, υπογράψαμε και ένα μνημόνιο μεταξύ μας για την περαιτέρω ενίσχυση της ήδη στενής μας συνεργασίας. Είναι ιδιαίτερη χαρά για μένα σήμερα να προλογίσω το ψηφιακό σκέλος του προγράμματος με παρεμβάσεις εξαιρετικών διεθνείς τελεχών και φορέων, με τους οποίους ήδη συνεργάζεται η Enterprise Greece. Με την eBay ανακοινώσαμε πρόσφατα μια σύμπραξη για την προώθηση των ελληνικών προϊόντων σε καταναλωτές παγκοσμίως, ενώ με την Workly τρέχουμε μια πιλωτική ψηφιακή πλατφόρμα για τις εξαγωγές ελληνικών τροφίμων στο εξωτερικό. Όπως υποδηλώνει και ο τίτλος της ομιλίας μου, Greek Exports 4.0, εκτός από τη χρήση των νέων τεχνολογιών και των δομικών αλλαγών που έχουν επέλθει στο διεθνές εμπόριο, είναι σημαντική η προσαρμοστικότητα και η ευελιξία στους δρόντες. Επίσης, είναι απαραίτητες για την κατανόηση των διεθνών συσχετισμών, του νέου παγκόσμιου εξαγωγικού μοντέλου και το κυριότερο, την προσαρμογή στην κουλτούρα των εταίρων τους. Στο πλαίσιο αυτό της ευελιξίας και ως φορέας διεθνούς εμπορίου και εξωστρέφειας, η προσαρμογή στην κουλτούρα του εταίρου μας είναι απαραίτητη. Βασικό συστατικό στοιχείο, άλλωστε, μιας επιτυχημένης σχέσης είναι να μιλάς την ίδια γλώσσα εντός εισαγωγικών με τον συνεργάτη σου. Γι' αυτό θα μου επιτρέψετε να συνεχίσω την ομιλία μου στα αγγλικά. Ladies and gentlemen, 2020 has been a year of change and rapid adaptation to challenges at all levels of society, including how business is conducted. That is driving us all to increasingly adopt digital and technology solutions. International trade is also being revolutionized, and Greek exports have to adapt in this rapidly changing environment. Hence, Greek Exports 4.0 is a new path for growth and development. Even before the global pandemic, the new vision for the Greek economy was already oriented towards the global marketplace and a digital future. COVID accelerated this transformation and has served as a catalyst in the implementation of the Greek government's digital strategy with record speed. Long bureaucratic processes have been simplified and provided online through the gov.gr platform. Digital processing of pharmaceutical prescriptions and other digital services to citizens are just a few examples. In the private sector, we have already witnessed a rapid growth in e-commerce transactions in the Greek marketplace. Export promotion has also gone digital. Virtual international fairs and exhibitions, online B2B meetings, networking and marketing have sprung. New digital means of production in agriculture and food processing are used. The Greek fashion industry is making waves around the world, and many brands are launching in New York and elsewhere. A vibrant tech ecosystem has blossomed and is now drawing international investment and customers with Greece's innovative, competitive, and high-quality products and services. Moreover, Greek products in food and beverage, as well as in the beauty sector, are emerging as symbols of a healthy diet, lifestyle, and well-being, respectively. Altogether, they pave the way for a paradigm shift and a new perspective in export promotion. At Enterprise Greece, the Greek National Trade and Investment Promotion Agency, we help our companies go global and access the most promising markets for their products and services. Over the past months, we have accelerated our own transformation to meet the challenges of the times. Apart from launching a new organizational model within our trade division, we launched a set of digital services and tools to help Greek exporters respond to the new pandemic-impacted international context. Let me just mention a few. We introduced a strategic cooperation with eBay. In its first phase, we addressed the more digitally export-ready, providing them with the training, marketing support, financial incentives, and overall growth support from eBay. Together with Mr. Ilya Kretov and our teams, we are working on the next phase of our collaboration, which we will announce soon. Through this partnership, Greek products have direct access to 182 million consumers in 190 countries around the world. Secondly, we are running a webinar series together with our embassies and offices of economic and commercial affairs around the world about doing business in the current environment and opportunities in different markets. That has so far included 3 webinars, which were specifically aimed at the US market. Thirdly, we provide an ongoing training program called Tech Tuesdays, a series of digital workshops every Tuesday, just as the name suggests, that introduce Greek exporters to digital strategies and tools in order to better cope with the new normal and access international markets. We have also enhanced our B2B marketing strategy and content with digital versions, catalogs, campaigns, promotion materials, B2B events, etc. And we're piloting new platforms such as that of Warplea with Mr. John Duxaras for the virtual management and execution of the export process. We're developing export promotion tools and programs for the technology and services sector. And we recently launched an acceleration program in partnership with US Market Access Center, a Silicon Valley-based organization that will provide training to Greek tech companies on how to access the US and international markets. More than 190 participants from Greek tech companies registered for our digital presentation just this last Thursday, and we are excited to develop more export promotion programs for them. Finally, as part of the Greek Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Enterprise Greece works closely with our offices of economic and commercial affairs of the Greek embassies abroad. Our common deep knowledge of foreign markets and the networks we have both built is an invaluable asset for our joint endeavors. Ladies and gentlemen, as we proceed towards the second year of this challenging and demanding decade, we have to think and act fast. A technological revolution that was already happening in production and processing through artificial intelligence and big data is now accelerated. We no longer only speak about a new industrial revolution, Industry 4.0. Having witnessed a profound crisis in transportation and travel, international trade is deeply affected, as we just saw from Mr. Karavasili's presentation. Responding quickly is integral to survival and evolution. So we have to develop a new export paradigm, a new mentality, and adapt to become agile, creative, and of course, digital. That is the only way forward towards growth and development. Thank you very much for your attention. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ.
Σας ευχαριστούμε πολύ, κύριε Αλεξανδροπούλου. Είναι ομολογουμένος ο ρόλος που διαδραματίζει το Enterprise Greece στην ενίσχυση της ελληνικής εξωστρέφειας. Είναι ιδιαίτερα εξωσμίωτος. Και μαζί μπορούμε να κάνουμε πολλά πράγματα και να βοηθήσουμε περαιτέρω τους Έλληνες εξαγωγείς που έχουν στόχο την αγορά των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών της Αμερικής. Σε αυτό το σημείο θα ήθελα να καλωσορίσω I would like to welcome Mr. Ilya Kretov, General Manager, Global Emerging Markets, eBay. Mr. Kretov, it is a great pleasure for us to have you here today. He will present to us some data from the eBay platform that will highlight the dynamics that Greece has in global markets and especially in the American market. Mr. Kretov, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dina, and ladies and gentlemen, Kalispera, and I will speak English for the sake of that's the only language which probably we will speak together. So let me move on. It's a big privilege for me to be here, and in the next 15 to 20 minutes, we will cover what digital platforms like eBay can practically drive for the business and for the export growth opportunities. So let me start with just a short video of one of our seller who recently graduated from one of our programs.
Στην Αθήνα ήρθα το 2002. Από τότε μέχρι σήμερα έχουν αλλάξει πάρα πολλά. Είδα τις κοινωνικές καταστάσεις να αλλάζουν και πήρα το θάρρος να κάνω κάτι για τον εαυτό μου και την οικογένειά μου. Δεν το πίστευα στην αρχή ότι θα πήγαινε έτσι, ότι η δράση μου αυτή με το eBay θα με υποφελούσε τόσο πολύ. Δραστηριοποιούμε στο κομμάτι της αντίκας, του συλλεκτικού είδους και του κοσμήματος. Ξεκίνησα το 2009. Η επιχείρηση στην οποία άρχισα ήδη είχε φυσικό κατάστημα. Ο κόσμος τότε, όταν είχε ζόρι να πληρώσει ΔΕΗ ενίκεια, δεν μπορούσε να μπει σε ένα κατάστημα με αντίκες, με συλλεκτικά είδη, να πει ότι θα πάρω κάτι για το σπίτι. Οι δικοί μου πια, οι συνάδελφοι συνεργάτες, προσπαθούσαν να αξιοποιήσουν άλλους πόρους. Το eBay μπήκε στο κομμάτι αυτό και βοήθησε πάρα πολύ. Το βασικό πλεονέκτημα της επιχείρησής μου αυτή τη στιγμή είναι ότι έχω βγει από την κατάσταση επιβίωσης και μεγαλώνω συνέχεια μέσω του eBay. Τα ελληνικά προϊόντα στην παγκόσμια αγορά έχουν πάρα πολύ μεγάλο ενδιαφέρον λόγω της μοναδικότητας, λόγω της ποιότητας και λόγω του ότι η αγορά ακόμα η οποία δραστηριοποιείται στο διεθνές εμπόριο από την Ελλάδα είναι ακόμα πάρα πολύ μικρή. Πιστεύω ότι ο Έλληνας σαν επιχειρηματίας προσαρμόζεται και έχει και το θάρρος και τη θέληση να δουλέψει και να το χτίσει. Όταν έμαθα ότι θα ερχόταν το eBay Export Revival εδώ στην Αθήνα, ενθουσιάστηκα πάρα πολύ, καθώς θα γνώριζα τους ανθρώπους οι οποίοι είναι πίσω από το eBay, πίσω από την πλατφόρμα, θα μας δίνανε πάρα πολλά insights για την αγορά και τις νέες τάσεις που εξελίσσονται. Ένα από τα μεγάλα πλεονεκτήματα του eBay ήταν ότι μέσω της πλατφόρμας τους μπορούσα να βρω πελάτες για τα φθηνά μου προϊόντα, για τα πολύ ακριβά μου προϊόντα και το eBay σαν marketplace και σαν πλατφόρμα μπορούσε να υποστηρίξει και κάθε πώληση. Προς τους νέους πολιτές, οι οποίοι μπαίνουν μέσα στη πλατφόρμα του eBay, καλή επιτυχία επίσης στον εαυτό σας. Εκεί πέρα έξω υπάρχουν πάρα πολλοί επιχειρηματίες, οι οποίοι έχουν επιλέξει τη πλατφόρμα και βιοπορίζονται μέσα από αυτό.
All right. Thank you. So, congratulations. You just had a premiere video. We never showed this video before to the wider audience. So you just saw it, the first people in the world who saw this video live. So let's move on. I will show actually a few more examples of the sellers going on through the presentation to give you a sense what is being sold through Greece and what is the opportunity. But also we will talk about the market figures and practically how to get a piece of that export pie. To give a definition, everything we will be talking today about is what is called professionally online retail export, meaning selling from the company to the personal demand of buyers which are sitting outside Greece. So let's move on. We spoke a lot about the changes and we see other speakers spoke about the changes. And just to give you an example, that the trends cannot be underestimated. So if you look back not long time ago, just 10 years ago, and look at the top 10 most valued companies out there in the world, there were just two companies which were connected somehow to the technologies, Microsoft and Apple. If you look now into 2020, and of course 2020 get a major quantum shift into everything which is coming with technology and with e-commerce, you see that 9 out of 10 top valued companies in the world are the technological companies. And most of them are somehow connected to the e-commerce. So this is a growing market. It's keep growing. And I think that it's basically high underestimated not to have this growing market in each company strategy. If you think about the business numbers, overall close to $4 trillion US dollars, according to a marketer, is the total value of e-commerce out there. So everything which is somehow bought through the internet. What is more interesting to me is the subset of this market, which is more than $600 billion, which is called cross-border market. This is the market where goods are actually being moved through the through the borders of different countries. And the demand in this market is represented by the buyers sitting on that end, yeah, somewhere like in United States, United Kingdom, and many other countries. Of course, we need to consider these opportunities with the domestic opportunities, and probably you know this data better than me, but the overall size of Greek e-commerce market is close to $5 billion, yeah, a little bit less in euros. And in my view, it's if you are entering the e-commerce solutions, you should be considering both domestic market, because probably it's easier to start with, but export opportunities can give you much more advance. And I think that's usually like the sellers who are successful, they're considering both opportunities. It's interesting that we are now listening for experts and people like me, and it's funny enough that all experts were wrong into what is happening with the e-commerce market in 2020. Yeah? So if you look back in the forecast, what people just thought the US e-commerce market will be in 2019, in reality, we see that the US market just ramped up into a year or maybe like close to a couple of years ahead of what it should be according to all the forecasts. And this is coming for the goods of the market. I can tell you that like as eBay working not only within the US, but across multiple other countries and markets. My team is responsible for 200 markets outside US. We see that some markets actually were beaten by reality, beat the forecast like by 3 years. Yeah, so there is a quantum shift now in e-commerce around the world, and marketplaces actually can help you to access that growing demand. So we're talking about marketplaces and marketplaces. So what the marketplace is. Again, like I think you all know this, but just to give a definition to be on the same page, marketplace is the platform which do two simple things. It connects buyer and seller across the world, wherever they are, and they secure transaction between them. So if to talk about eBay marketplace, we currently have more than 183 million buyers globally. So just sum up how many European countries you need to get together in order to have at least a population, not talking about the payable population and e-commerce population, who can represent 183 million buyers at just one platform at eBay. And an interesting trend that's already 12,000 sellers from Greece are selling something on the platform. We see the dramatic shift, positive shift in the demand for selling on eBay from Greek sellers, especially in, like, just to give an example, in May versus April, the number of new sellers who sold something on eBay grew by quarter. Yeah, and that's usually what we never saw before. Usually, like May and June is going like seasonality going down. Yeah, so the demand for export for new opportunities is going up. At the moment, Greek sellers are selling 1 million items a year, and that's too far from being the ceiling to being the top bar of that opportunity. I will show you why. And at the moment, the new seller who start developing their business, they are selling roughly in 13 to 15 countries in the first full year of operations. To give you a few other examples, what is being sold, and usually I'm asked the question like, who out there need our products? And with this example, I wanted to show you, and if you ask more, I can show you more examples from not just from Greece, from other countries, that potentially like everything can be sold at eBay, yeah, if this is a physical product. So, for example, aftermarket marine parts, like a private label company which are selling different parts for yachts and boats, small company, 10 employees, 5 years at eBay, and have more than 3,000 listings of their own, which they produce. And like somebody out there needs their product, even with the fact that it's a private label. Konstantinos Pilaris, a great seller from the shop which is called You Herbit. And he started as like a one-man show store, and currently he has like 3 employees and 3 times more revenue since 2017. He also has about 3,000 listings and close to 100% positive feedback. I can tell you that reaching this kind of feedback is the work. Yeah, you need to make sure that all of your customers are satisfied with what they ordered and they received it in time and happy about that. So Konstantinos is definitely someone we need to learn from. Then there is another seller, Zanahela Smet, which is selling the different oils and cosmetic products like quite a long time with eBay already, in the family business. And to my knowledge, like a lot of portion of their revenue is coming from eBay. You can find some funny examples like Toys Shop, yeah, like selling different collectibles, figures, and so on. This one is interesting, yeah, because I cannot even name what is on the slides, but these guys are selling different motor parts and doing this pretty actively across the entire globe. Of course, furs are very popular, and the average selling price is quite good. Then we have, I will show you a couple of examples of cosmetic seller. The one is reselling, so they measure a distributor of the cosmetic, which is produced, can be Greek original, can be produced outside Greece. And this one, of course, you will know there's also a distributor who is selling the Greek cosmetic, which is also highly demanded out there. So if you ask me for the numbers and what's being sold, you can screenshot this slide. We call it long tail, yeah. So there are definitely like some categories which are larger than others. Auto parts or like motor parts is getting high momentum on the marketplace. Different collectibles, and given that Greece is branded in a way with antique, as an example we saw with the video with Michalis, yeah, is very well demanded. Then all the health and beauty and this natural things, which is also like, I think we spoke about like the what is your brand, yeah. So I think the Greece is a country branded for that. So everything can be sold, but you name it, yeah. It can be not only just this, but can be just a general distribution of maybe other brands, not potentially just Greek produced. So if you ask me where this all these goods, all these items are going to, 34%, yeah, more than 1/3 is going to United States. That's what like where the majority of the buyers concentrated, and I can say that roughly 60% of all the Greek sellers, they are selling something in the United States, but just by the share of money, it's 34%. Then there is distribution across Europe and United Kingdom. Interestingly, that there is a small portion which is going to Greece. And interesting enough that 37%, like another large third, yeah, is being sold everywhere else. And this everywhere else, you will probably hardly gain with you know, like direct contract and traveling into those countries and so on. So overall, if you take Greek sellers where they sell to across the momentum of a year, last year they were selling to 200 different countries. And just a little bit to provoke your brains and memory, those countries included Vanuatu, St. Kitts Nevis, and Wallis and Futuna. Just I wonder, like, if anybody knows from you, like, where this is located. I had to look at the Google map when we're speaking to look at them. So these are like small islands everywhere else, like in the oceans, and they for some reason need something from a Greek seller. So everything is possible. We see a lot of potential in the Greek market, and we see like a rising trend, and we believe in the products which are available in the Greek market. So that is why this year, just this year, we launched 3 different programs that support Greek markets and local enterprises, local entrepreneurs to sell more into the world. So the first one program is called Export Revival, and you already heard this like naming from the first video. So Export Revival is the program, and actually Athens became the first capital in Southern Europe which holds the Export Revival, is the program of taking the best sellers in the region, educating them, and making them sell from the scratch, or almost from the scratch, into the entire world. We had more than 100 different applications, 70 participants went through the educational program, and you can see that the number of categories is just insane. Yeah, like they're selling everything, and now they're starting to sell to everywhere. To give you a couple more examples whom we get from this program, so the one is Elias Ritsos, owner of Akakia store. So he said that I like to find what is being handmade, produced, and having a value, and that's connected with the Orthodox symbology, and selling this to the people who need this across the entire globe. And he like doing this with a very good care. Yusuf Mihalis, here's another Mihail, the owner of Michel, I think it's like the way he's called, Michel Fashion Store. So this is the store which is his family business, and he said it's like the demands, local demands started to decline, and he started to look for another opportunities, and so he started to successfully trade on eBay. Quite soon we will also have this story from Michael and other guys, and we will show you where you can look and get more details about them. Second program, it's actually started with all the lockdown and pandemic, and when the things started to get a little bit worse in the entire world, not just in Europe or Greece. And we realized, fortunately, unfortunately, that there are a lot of businesses, like Mihail's business, for example, that are actually being closed if they are online business. And so quite fast, and Greece was one of the first countries where we launched this globally. We launched a program which is called Always Open on eBay, and we brought 60 sellers to this program, selected 60 sellers, and ran through entire education, and now most of those offline stores started to sell online at eBay, saving their business and their family incomes, which I think is great. In the course of this program, the sellers get a personal manager, they get education, and also they get what is called free store at eBay, which allows to do multiple different things like marketing and getting more listings and everything. Yeah, I will share later on the link. The program is up and running, so if you want to join it, you can join it as well. Within this program, I think I should mention that there were, like when the lockdown started, there were a lot of challenges with logistics, again, like not just in Greece, but overall. And specifically for the Greek sellers, we did programs which create a fee deferral, so post payments on the eBay fees, and also we keep the performance status. Just like a couple of words about the performance, why it's important. When you're in the marketplace, it's the same like, I know, like you're ordering a taxi, for example, and each store, they have their rating. The better the rating, like I showed you in the example of Konstantinos, the better the rating, the better platform understand that you serve customers in a good way. And the higher you are in the search ranking, the more sales you have. So when you have logistical challenges, which is not dependent on you, but it's just the world changed, this performance can go down. So basically we said that during the COVID lockdown, we keep the performance as it is, and if it's improved, then we even raise it higher. And the third program, which I'm very privileged to be in, and I'm very thank you and delighted what Betty already said, is our program with Enterprise Greece. And I'm calling that it's just started. So it's an important program with which Enterprise Greece and eBay get together and started to envision how to bring the overall education about retail export, how to educate people, entrepreneurs in Greece to start selling abroad, to bring their inventory, to bring their goods and items abroad, how to serve international customers and so on. So we just started this program with what is we call internally soft launch with 70 companies in September this year. And as Betty mentioned, there are big plans for the 2021, and we expect this program will scale quite fast and get strong results for the Greek sellers and Greek economy. Previously, I told you that I have high hopes why the Greece can go up higher and faster. And this is the one of the data points which I'm referring to. If you compare Greece with the relative countries in Southern Europe, like Bulgaria or Israel, and with the respectively similar amount of population, then if you take like just top 100 sellers who are selling on eBay and saying like, okay, like the average from Greece selling by like X amount of $100,000, yeah, or whatever it is. And then you compare this with Bulgaria. Bulgaria sells 2.5 times larger. If you go to Israel, which work, I would say like a little bit differently in terms of supply, you come up with 4x. And of course, when we think about the golden standard and what is possible, then we should look at China, where they have like a little bit different production capacity and a little bit different supply strategy in the country. But top 100 sellers are selling 42 times more in China than the top 100 sellers in Greece. So that is why like maybe 42x is not achievable in the like next 1 to 3 years, yeah. But going from X to 2x, 3x, 5x, and maybe 20x in 5 years, in my view, is very much possible. And that requires the development of the seller base and also development of each entrepreneur who is currently selling on the platform. And that's what we do together with our partners. The last thing which I wanted to show you, maybe a very strange picture, but we're also working with different charity organizations and different funds, yeah. And so some of them, they produce something. And I was helping recently, just a couple of months ago, I was helping one fund to find new sales opportunity. And I said, like, what physical product do you have? They said, like, okay, we produce these plates, and they're working with the special people and trying, you know, like to get them some profession. I said, okay, let's try this plate. And I didn't hope for nothing, yeah. So I just listed this through my computer under my account, and just to test like what is going to happen. And while I was listing the other goods which they provided to me, I got a message. I will show it to you, but it is in Russian. Yeah, I got a message that, hey, your item, like your plate, was sold. I said, like, no possible. Like just 2 or 3 minutes left. I looked at my account statement, and like it's realistically like the person actually sent me the money. I looked at who is this person. Beautiful Lamaraca Sachs from somewhere in Louisiana in United States bought this plate for some reason, just because she loved it, yeah. And she bought it for 10 times more money than this fund was selling by themselves. So there are countries where disposable income is higher than potentially it is in some of our European countries. There are countries which are looking forward for unique products or some product with which is sold across the borders. You saw the slide that people are starting to look more into what like the product is about, like how much it costs, like how unique is that, and so on. So definitely there is an opportunity out there, and this example is just another proof for me that it works greatly. You just need to find your niche. With that, I want to welcome everybody. If you want one link to remember, like you need to remember this one, or just make a photo from your laptop on the QR code. export.ebay.com. It's also like partly translated into the Greek language, and that's where I will invite you all to start your selling abroad and start your retail export with eBay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kredov. It was a really insightful presentation, and thank you also for presenting to us the video and all the success stories from Greek exporters. According to my understanding, there are huge growth opportunities for the Greek exporters by using eBay and other e-commerce platforms. So I would like to ask you very briefly, because we are running out of time. According to your experience, what are the key elements that determine an effective sales strategy of a product through eBay?
Yeah, good question. So I think that the first one is surprising to note is to find your niche. Yeah. So there are I saw multiple times when I speak with them. Successful sellers, I'm asking like, what is the one advice you would give to all new sellers? They say like, it's just one word, try. Yeah, because like they all started with something they maybe knew better about. Then they saw some statistics, and eBay provide a lot of statistics about the categories and your products and visibility and so on. And then they started to switch to something else, and then they found their niche where they became very successful. That's I think like the one, like the major premises. Yeah, the second one is more practical, that you are selling something to somebody whom you never met, who will never see you, and he just need to believe you somehow to give you money. Yeah, eBay of course take this part of the believability, because eBay protects the transaction between you, but the general advice is to make your photos, your description as juicy as it can be. Yeah, because people are buying with eyes. And they need to see your product from different angles and multiple photos and like nice description, to make a purchase. The third thing is probably, and that's what also actually not my advice, but when I ask like the large sellers, I'm asking like, how did you made yourself scale? Many of them, they're saying that. For us, it was crucial to understand all the possibilities of the platform. Yeah, because eBay provides possibilities how to market your product, how to promote your product, different analytical tools. And they say like when we started to go deep into that, then our sales started to grow. So e-commerce is all about data. It's all about in my view, like about performance and mathematics. Yeah. So look into that, look what other sellers are doing, what your competitors are doing, what similar sellers from similar categories are doing. Try to mimic somehow, like try to invent new things, and then everything will happen.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for your input. And now we would like to move forward, and I would like to welcome Mr. Frank Yanas, who is the Deputy Commissioner for Food Policy Response at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA. He is also the Principal Advisor to the FDA Commissioner on Food Safety Policies, including implementation of the FDA Food Safety Modernization Act. Mr. Yanas will present a new area of modern food initiative. Mr. Yanas, please, the floor is yours.
Great. And just get to my first slide, please. Kalimera from the United States. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. I've been with the FDA a couple of short years now. Prior to that, I was in the private sector for many years working for the Disney company and then Walmart, world's largest retailer. But for the past 2 years since I've joined the FDA, my colleagues have been teasing me that we're hearing a lot from Greek stakeholders. And I say that's fine with me. It must have something to do with my last name and my Greek heritage. So I'm very delighted and pleased to be part of this session today in particular. And talk specifically about food, because Greek food producers and exporters play a very important role in the 21st century food system. And when it comes to food availability and food safety, we're all in this together. But let me just start acknowledging the obvious. Number one is we have just gone through, and we're still going through, probably the most historic crisis in over a century or a decade. And we know that this issue of food has been challenging. We know that the virus that causes COVID-19 is not transmitted by food. We all know that, and we know that food is unlikely to be a vehicle. The virus that causes this disease is spread human-to-human transmission. But nevertheless, it has placed challenges or strains on the food system, the global food system, because we know that protecting worker safety when they're at work, preventing them from getting ill, is also part of supply chain continuity. They're actually two sides of the same coin. So I just want to thank all of the listeners, wherever you are, and certainly Greek food producers, as well as U.S. food producers, for the role that you've played to ensure that consumers worldwide and in both of our countries have access to safe and available food. Now, food imports, the reality is consumers today all over the world want to eat foods from various places. They want diversity in their diet. In the US, people think that we consume a lot of imported foods, but the reality is, on balance, the American consumer eats about 15% of the food from abroad. It's much higher in certain categories. For example, in seafood, about 94% of the seafood that Americans eat is imported from abroad. It's close to the high 40% when it comes to fresh fruits, and in the 30s for vegetables. But that's changing, and those targets are expected to increase over time. And the reality is, consumers in every country, certainly in the US, want their foods to be safe, regardless of where they come from. I personally have an interest in Greek foods, having enjoyed Greek food all of my life, growing up as a first-generation American. And what I want to talk to you today is about the importance of food safety, because the reality is, I personally have a desire that we see more Greek food and Greek cuisine imported into the United States. And notice that I drew a distinction between what I called foods that come from Greece that are truly novel or unique to Greece, and cuisines that are really the types of preparations that are so special in Greece. Let's go to the next slide, please. Let me begin with this premise, and I think you've probably heard this from other speakers, and you will continue to hear it today. There is no question about it that the world around us is changing very, very rapidly. When it comes to food, this is true as well. Some predict, I believe this, that we are in the midst of a food revolution. We're going to see more changes in food production over the next 10 years than we've seen in the past 30. We see the level of investments being made in food, and granted, the COVID pandemic and the economic downturn might slow this temporarily, but I don't think it'll last. In many countries such as ours, what we're seeing is foods being reformulated. We see new foods being realized, such as cell culture foods, gene-edited crops. We see new food production methods being realized. We see consumers and their tastes and demands changing, as I mentioned, wanting more foods from abroad. And we see the food system in general becoming more digitized. And at the FDA, what we believe is that more modern times are going to require more modern approaches to food safety. So in the remaining minutes that I have with you, what I want to share is a vision, a new blueprint that the FDA published a few months ago for the future. It's a 10-year view. I'm not going to talk about what are the specific requirements that Greek food producers and importers have to meet to export food to the United States. I think you have another speaker that will go through the details of the food safety modernization requirements. But what I want us to do is, just for a few minutes, think about the future and envision that future, because that future isn't one that Greek and US food producers should try to predict. It's one that we can shape and build together, a stronger, safer, and more resilient food system. So in July of this year, the FDA published a blueprint called the New Era of Smarter Food Safety. It builds on the work that we've done through the Food Safety Modernization Act. It has 4 central tenets, if you will. One is the importance of creating a more digital, tech-enabled food system that is transparent for consumers and continues to build on consumer trust. And there will be many benefits, by the way, by doing so. Second core tenet is a concept that we're calling smarter tools and approaches for prevention. And I'll describe in a little bit more detail some of the work that we're doing behind each and every one of these tenets. The third one is new business models and retail modernization. I think you heard a little bit from the previous speaker. The reality is more and more consumers are switching and making purchases of foods online. Before the pandemic, we had estimated that about 1 out of every $5 spent on food in the United States would be spent on an online platform. That's 20% of the food share. We expected that that would grow over the years, and what we've seen is the pandemic actually blew all those statistics out of the water, and what we're seeing now is some reports of upwards of 30+% of every food dollar that's spent at retail is being spent on an online platform. Consumers making decisions of what they buy by going online, partly out of measures of asking people to stay home and shelter in place. And we're also seeing, which is quite interesting, demographics that we had never predicted would actually make food purchases online, making them online. But I believe that this trend will continue long after the pandemic. It's the idea that you can create an endless shelf as opposed to having about 50,000 food SKUs or food items available at your favorite grocery store. The idea that you can get online and buy anything that you want from anywhere in the world as long as it meets that country's safety and regulatory compliance requirements. And then the fourth area of focus for our new era of smarter food safety is what we're calling food safety culture. The idea that food safety can't simply be about rules and regulations, but it is about human behavior. And if you're trying to improve food safety, what you have to do is influence people's behaviors. And what we really want to do is get better at combining principles of food science and concepts of organizational culture, along with the traditional food safety measures, but food science and food safety with concepts of organizational culture and human behavior blended together might allow us to be more successful. And the goal is to make people responsible for food safety as opposed to accountable for food safety. When you're accountable for food safety, you're going to follow the procedures and the requirements of a specific country because you want to follow it. If you don't and you get caught, you might not be able to sell those foods. The reality is we want people to be responsible because we care and want to take care of one another. But I'm limited in time, so I'm going to give you a flavor for what this new era of smarter food safety looks like with two examples. One under tech-enabled traceability. And the way I'm going to do this is tell you the story of what I call the life journey of a mango. Just so that you see, this is the end goal. This is what we're looking for. And we won't get there overnight, but we will over time. Mangoes in this country, in the United States, are generally eaten but produced in small and medium-sized farms in Central and South America, not in North America. And these mango seedlings, where they're planted, they take 5 to 7 years for these seedlings to mature, and you have plants that are bearing fruit. When they're bearing fruit, farm crews will go out there and pick the mangoes, take it to a packing house where they're washed, treated, and packed. They then get shipped by air, land, or sea to the United States. Once in the United States, in this scenario, they went to a processing facility that further washed, peeled, and sliced them, and put them in a clear clamshell, sliced fresh mangoes, and sent them to about 60 distribution centers across the United States, where they ended up in Walmart stores all over the country. Now, we wanted to know where these mangoes came from, and I did just that. I asked our team to trace it back. It took them a long time because these traceability records are kept on paper, one step up, one step back. It took them almost 7 days, 6 days, 18 hours, and 16 minutes to be exact. We started to do a proof of concept or a pilot, capturing data at each point in the supply chain on a distributed ledger technology called blockchain. And at the end of that pilot, capturing that information in very simple, user-friendly terms, we were able to scan a package of mangoes and trace it back to source in 2.2 seconds. That's food traceability at the speed of thought. Now, I believe consumers increasingly want to know where foods come from and how they're produced, and we have an interest in advancing food traceability. The reality, the vision that I just laid isn't going to happen overnight. So for the FDA, one of the things we've done is we've just proposed a new food regulation, a new food traceability rule in the US called the Proposed Food Traceability Rule that will outline how we'll begin this journey of strengthening how we track and trace foods over time. The rule is interesting because it centers around key data elements, critical tracking events. What are the harmonized data elements that are needed to better track food? We've identified a list of what we call a proposed food traceability list, what types of foods would require this type of tracking and tracing. And right now we're in the US in what we call the public comment period, where we have a proposed rule open and we're asking the public and interested stakeholders to give comments on what they like and what they don't like and what they'd change about the rule. Our goal is to have a final rule on better food traceability completed by the year 2022 for certain foods, not all foods. And while it won't require the type of electronic traceability that it just shared, it'll be a beginning to that journey. Another part of the new era that I thought I'd paint for you just for illustration is one on imported foods. I think I shared with you about 94% of imported foods in the United States comes from abroad, seafood in particular. And the reality is imported food is expected to increase year after year. You can see it's been doing it for 2 decades. I don't think this is going to decrease. In fact, I believe it's going to continue to increase. Shipments might get smaller as we start really maturing this e-commerce world that we're living in. But imported food trends in terms of the number of line items that are imported in the United States are expected to go up. Our goal is to work through the Food Safety Modernization Act and the foreign supplier verification aspects requiring importers to make sure those foods meet U.S. safety requirements. At times, FDA will go out and do food safety inspections abroad. But another tool that we use is something that we call Predict, that screens every single line of imported food items into the United States using a risk ranking model that's largely subject matter expert produced and driven. So one of the things we wanted to do is, with this idea of a new era of smarter food safety, could we take these new and emerging tools, such as artificial intelligence and machine learning, to strengthen our predictive capabilities of finding violative products that are imported into the United States? And so we took 2 years of seafood data that was imported into the United States. We looked at it with our current Predict system, but then we overlaid this functionality of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And our initial proof of concept showed that by doing that, this technique that could take large volumes of data and, look for trends and patterns, we could increase our predictive capabilities of finding which containers or shipments of food were violative, meaning they didn't meet US standards. We could increase our chances of doing that by 300%. By 300%, that's a game changer. We'll continue to work on these types of tools. Congress has given us $5 million to do a further pilot of this technology this year. But hopefully those 2 examples give you a flavor for what's to come. I shared that with you because while we just experienced the largest food test in over a century, I like to say that the food system in many countries around the world, certainly in the US, passed the test. We didn't pass it with flying colors. Early in the pandemic, there were some outages in retail stores in the United States as consumers rushed to make purchases. Certainly, we saw as restaurants and hotels and theme parks in this country had to close, some imbalances. And so we saw actually large volumes of food not being used and being discarded. It wasn't that we had a food supply issue, we had a supply chain logistics challenge in that we had too much food in the wrong places as those places closed down. And I'm convinced that doing some of the work that we're talking about here for the new era of smarter food safety over the next decade will allow us to create a more digital, transparent, and safer food system that will actually be stronger and more resilient for consumers. So that's just a few minutes to whet your appetite on the future and where we're going. We would love to build this future together, and we would love for Greek food producers and food exporters to be part of this journey with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Giannis, for your excellent presentation. And the truth is that end-to-end traceability is very important. And congratulations on this initiative. I would like to ask a question, respectful of your time, a brief one. Will the new era of smarter food safety initiative replace any of the requirements that Greek food producers have to meet under the FESMA, under the Food Safety Modernization Act?
No, it's a great question, Dina. Thank you. No, for the time being, any food producers or exporters listening in, the requirements that you should be expected are the FSMA requirements, which you've come to know now over the past 9 years. That's not going to change. We're going to build on this future together. And we think a lot of it is just trying to use new and emerging technologies to comply with the current FSMA requirements, but not necessarily changing the requirements.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much. It was a great honor for us to have you here today, and wish you a nice day.
Thank you.
Και τώρα θα ήθελα να περάσουμε στον επόμενο μιλητή μας, τον κύριο Γιάννη Δοξαρά, founder και CEO της Workly, ο οποίος θα μας μιλήσει για τις αλλαγές που παρουσίασε η πανδημία στο B2B trade και στην καταναλωτική συμπεριφορά. Κύριε Δοξαρά, καλησπέρα και σας ακούμε.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here and be part of this excellent online discussion. So I'm John Doxaras and I'm the CEO of Workly. Workly is a company that's been around for the last 8 years, and what we specialize in is consumer behavior programs, consumer loyalty programs, and B2B trade in a global scale. So what I'm going to do today is that I'm going to go through some use cases that we've launched in different parts of the world during the COVID pandemic. And in terms of B2C and customer experience, because I really believe that the change of customer experience will actually give us the way forward in terms of how we design customer interactions, and again how we backward design the channels that we actually use to reach the customers. And then I will discuss a little bit about the changes in the B2B transactions and international trade, and how this lack of the ability to actually fly in a trade expo and meet your distributors in person would actually change the way we do business. So there were a lot of use cases that we had to launch, this kind of augmented reality spaces where we had apps given to consumers in order for them to, when they spend time within their homes during the lockdown, they had the chance to renovate their homes and, put furniture in specific areas within their home. So this is interesting because it generates a new type of data and a new type of needs for the end consumers and gives them a more, personalized way. Another use case we've launched in Middle East with one of the large, furniture retailers there, IKEA, was a virtual store where we could actually, walk through and have experience the same walkthrough that you have in a physical store. And the challenge here was to actually label all the actual, products, the e-commerce products on the images and video footage that we had in order for them to be interactive. Another very interesting use case that we are seeing in different parts of the world, and it has to do with all these real-time payments and chat payments and all these chatbots, is a solution that we have where you can actually talk to a virtual sales, sales machine, a bot, order your pizza, and then be able to pay through the actual messaging app they're using, or through the keyboard or the operating system that you're using. So this kind of gives a seamless experience on checking out and actually creating a virtual basket in a chatting environment where most of the customers out there are very accustomed to use. One of the use cases that we saw a very huge uptake was the skip the line use case with a takeaway kind of option. We serve Starbucks in several countries, their loyalty component. So the idea here was that you could pre-order, you could skip the line as you do in an actual use case, but this increased sales more than 250% because people would actually pre-order their coffee and actually visit the store and take away the coffee and move forward. Another very, very interesting use case is that we've seen with several banks. We have a use case, a large use case in Brazil with a bank there called PagSeguro, one of the largest PSPs in the market. They have 6 million merchants. And the idea there was that you could actually build an e-ordering platform on top of your existing e-commerce platform and acquiring platform. The idea there was that you could actually enable small and medium enterprises to actually accept orders without go through the online aggregators and having to spend a premium to Deliveroo or Uber Eats or Delivery Hero, this kind of platforms to actually accept a transaction. So this kind of gives us an understanding where things are moving, and this is another interesting use case where we're doing with several retailers, and these are some use cases we're also working with BKA consultants in several parts of the world, where you can actually do your own shopping cart and do a self-checkout without having to interact with the person at the cash registry. And because of the COVID and the limited access to the indoor brick and mortar floors, this would give you an interesting experience. And the last use case I'd love to share, and this is an interesting solution that we're doing with a large ice cream provider, it's a supplier there, is a concept of interactive fridges where you can actually tap your mobile device, and then you unlock the fridge, you pay through a Google Pay or Apple Pay device payment method to open the fridge. Then you take parts, you take products from the fridge, and then you close the fridge, and then you can actually have a basket, you get a receipt in your email, and you can move with your day without having to download an app or register somewhere or do anything like that. And this is a very strong use case, and we have a lot of different suppliers in dairy products, in ice creams, in beverages industries that they want to build this kind of distribution models, given the COVID, and being able to deliver this kind of products into a mass audience. So we're seeing that all these kind of interactions are starting to change. They're becoming more digital. Even traditional brick and mortar trade is becoming very digitalized, and this gives us an opportunity of tapping into the data that is generating with all these transactions going on. And we will actually right now discuss a little bit about how things are changing on the trade side. So the idea is that we're in Greece. We're in a country that is that's the supplier driven. We need to find buyers abroad, and we need to kind of start rebuilding the corridors that we have in economies of scale. As you all probably know, an international trade transaction has a lot of different steps, from contacting the exporter, contacting the buyer, getting a credit check on the buyer, sending some samples through courier services. The sample can either be sometimes perishable, so you need different packaging. So there's a lot of different steps that you want to fulfill this transaction, and then obviously, conclude on the Incoterms, find a freighter, etc. So we really need to have centralized platforms that can handle this kind of end-to-end transaction. We saw eBay as one platform that provides this kind of different steps to medium and smaller producers. But what about large producers and large distributors? Then the idea is that right now in 2020 we have tools in our disposal that they have to do with process automation and blockchain, as we heard earlier, and smart contracts, and transportation platforms and freight platforms that they right now have APIs, so it's really easy to actually interact with them. And revelations in user experience, like all the chatbots I discussed, and the AI, and all these instant translation services between different languages, which is also a barrier in the B2B commerce space. And we also have different distribution models, like the push to take intermediates out of the picture, and certification processes, especially for when you want to get like FDA approval to export something in the US, and additional services like credit insurance, and having harmonized production in order to keep the quality high of the product. So right now we're entering this era of the fast track exporter, as we'd like to call it, which means that even actually producers that even have the ability to export, or the knowledge, or the infrastructure, and the logistics, and the know-how, they now have the tools to actually use this kind of corridors very quickly, or combine 3, 4, 5 different tools. And these tools are actually given to them by either trade organizations or their partner banks. So there's a lot of stakeholders trying to give value to this end supplier, and that's a huge opportunity for all of us, because at the end of the day, you don't have to access only the target market of the Greek population, but even the European Union, which is a universal market, or other markets or starting markets. So all these trade barriers we used to see in the past, they're now, becoming opportunities, such as, the customs issue or the consumer diversification of, trying to build different products for different markets to target different consumer segments. And obviously, all this e-commerce regulation that they're harmonized right now across the US, the EU at least, and all these logistics that we see. So the general theory of marketplaces up until recently was that we had the online directories for B2B, typical sales transaction. And then we had all these digital marketplaces that would actually give you also all the logistics, and they would also give you access to customers and the payment gateways and all these tools that you need to do a transactional, an international transaction, international sales on a retail side, most of the cases. And we also had this, what we call, these procurement marketplaces, which we also see a lot of startups, taking into the taking a lot of business and a lot of volume transaction in this field. Like, we had the traditional Ariba by SAP networks, but we now have TradeUSA and Sectex, which are very strong contenders. So at Workly, we have a solution that, guys, actually goes through the entire window and on an end-to-end basis, and it can give you a transaction that, you can follow all the steps and you can make any decision within the platform. We are giving this product to several banks, and we're very happy to share with you that we're also running a pilot right now with Enterprise Greece, and the idea there is that we're taking a lot of some very prominent and some very educated and mature exporters, and we're trying to match them with sellers from different countries of the world, with buyers from different countries of the world that we know that they're interested in this solution. Another use case we're running in the Greek market is called it's an e-procurement service for the fresh market, which is the OKA market. And the idea here is that it's a B2B marketplace for fresh meat and fishes, vegetables and fruits. And the idea here is that, because of the COVID, it's easier to procure your orders through your from your wholesaler as a retailer from this particular channels. So a new kind of service that would actually try to tap into a local market in the beginning, but then on a global market on a later stage. So that will be it from my side.
Thank you very much, Mr. Doxera, for your presentation. It was quite, I could say, explanatory about the new trade B2B marketplaces. So I would just like to ask you one question. Would it be easy for you to give us an example of B2B trade bargaining technique for the US retail market? Sure.
I mean, there are different entry capabilities in the US market. Obviously, there are some online marketplaces that someone can actually register their products and they can have access to the local market. And there are also some very interesting, logistic kind of plays within the US market. We can have, kind of logistics as a service for particular products. So you just going through customs. This means that you store your products in the US soil, and then you actually going through customs as fast as you're actually selling your goods without having to go to actually, take all your goods through US customs. There are other techniques that you can find to, tap into the grocery listing kind of space, and these are techniques that you can use to, these are techniques like loyalty programs and consumer kickbacks. And the idea there is that you can actually leverage most of your trade marketing budget without giving it directly back to your distributor, to your grocery retailer, but instead of building some loyalty coupons and customer benefits in terms of starting to build a one-to-one connection with the end consumers in the US market.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for your time. Και θα προχωρήσουμε σε ένα σύντομο διάλειμμα 3 λεπτών και θα επανέλθουμε με το panel Diving into the US Market.
Καλησπέρα και πάλι. Εύχομαι να έχουμε επανέλθει όλοι στις θέσεις μας και μέχρι στιγμής να είναι εξαιρετικά επικοδομητικό για όλους και να σας βρίσκουμε όλους εδώ παρόλο που είναι μια δύσκολη ώρα. Θα ήθελα λοιπόν στο σημείο αυτό να καλωσορίσω το πάνελ το οποίο ξεκινάμε και να έχουμε τα ενδιαφέροντα. Θα έχουμε πρώτον τον κύριο Ron Tanner. Ron is the Vice President. Hi Ron, how are you?
Hello there, Dimitris.
Thank you for joining us. Ron is the Vice President of Education, Content and Advocacy for the Specialty Food Association. And he's in SFA, he's a member since 1987. And it's 3,900 and plus members. He's also presents 40 plus educational program each year. So Ron, the floor is yours to give us an idea about what is going on in the new era and COVID-19 in specialty food. And I have to mention that specialty food is also the association that provides the two specialty food shows, one in June, one on January. Unfortunately, this year, due to COVID-19 and due to pandemic, they were postponed, but in any case, the association is always there for its members. So please, Ron, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. And I need to introduce also the other persons, the other members of the panel, is Miss Julia Hedges. And hi, Julia, how are you?
Great, thank you. I'm so pleased to join you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Julia is the president of the United States Fashion Industry Association, and she represents brands, retailers, importers, and wholesalers based in the United States, and they're doing business globally. So thank you very much, and we're expecting really your input in this panel, that it's very important, and also for many Greek companies that they are operating in the specific sector and field, and we are a traditional, trend and fashion industry also in Greece. And last but not least, I have to welcome to our panel Daniel Fabricant.
Hey, Dimitri. We'll see you again.
Daniel Fabricant is the CEO and president of the National Product Association. It's the nation's and US largest and oldest trade organization representing the natural products industry, including dietary supplements, food, personal care products, and more. Mr. Dr. Fabricant served as the director of the Division of Dietary Supplement Programs at the US Food and Drug Administration, where he directed agency policy, public affairs, and regulatory actions regarding the regulation of the dietary supplement industry. And I had the honor to meet Daniel last year. It's a year passed through the board of directors of the National Product Association, and thank you very much, Daniel, for this. So let's begin with Ron. Ron, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dimitris. And could somebody share my slides, or should I be doing that myself?
I think you should share your screen, and you can. And just enter full screen on your slides. That's what you have to do. Okay, no worries, because this is happening. I mean, we are disrupting the technology now, and we are not so familiar, but everything will be done, no worries.
Demetrius, can you see them now?
Yes, thank you very much. Great, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And it's an honor to be able to present the specialty food trends post-COVID. What I'm going to be doing is talking a little bit about how things were going very well in 2019, and then how they've adapted a little bit. And I know a lot of people have talked about those adaptations. I'll skip past this. This is me. I'm the Vice President of Education, Content, and Advocacy for the Specialty Food Association. And we've been around since 1952 with 3,900 members that manufacture, import, distribute, and retail specialty food products. In 2019, U.S. specialty food sales topped $158.7 billion. That's actually larger than the entire budget of the state of New Jersey. So it's a very big industry that's been growing quite fast. 75% of the sales at retail. Before the pandemic, 22% through food service, 3% online. And obviously those have been changing quite a bit this year, and we'll talk about that a little bit going forward. Specialty foods represent 20% of all food sales at retail, so they're a big part of the business. When we started doing this research, which we do with Mintel International, back about 15 years ago, it was 8%. So they're growing tremendously, and a lot of that is because of great imported foods coming in from Greece and other countries, and the great domestic producers in the United States. Between 2017 and 19, sales of specialty food at retail jumped by about 9%, while sales of all food increased by just 3%. So specialty foods are growing 3 times faster than all food, and that's really been taking place this year as well, maybe even more so. You can see how it's been growing 10%, 9%, leveling off a little bit, but then jumping up a lot in 2020 and 2021. Again, 9% versus 3%, growing 3 times faster. Refrigerated products are growing the quickest. They grew by 11% in that 2-year period. So a lot of great opportunities for refrigerated, yogurts and cheeses and other refrigerated products. In channel sales, what I showed you before, the brick and mortar retail, food service versus online, but you can see the online growth really tremendous, growing by 132% in that 2-year period, and that's before this year. So obviously some of the other speakers have been talking about online growth, and it's growing really a lot. Brick and mortar, you can see the breakout between mainstream stores, specialty food stores, and natural food stores. So a lot of growth in each of the sectors. Specialty foods are becoming very omnipresent in the US and are moving into the mainstream quite a bit. And you can see here that the growth of 4%, 1.3%. So a lot of growth in all the different types of stores, with probably the specialty food stores growing the least. Because of specialty foods moving more into the mainstream stores, which would be supermarkets and a Target and a Walmart, and also into natural food stores. Category sales, the top 10 categories: cheese, obviously very important, chips, pretzels, and snacks, chocolate and other confectionery. So those are the top 10 categories. The top 10 categories represent almost half of all specialty food sales. And then when you look in the ones with the highest dollar growth, a lot of plant-based products there, and a lot of snack foods, jerky and meat snacks. You're seeing water, you're seeing rice cakes. But again, a lot of growth in these categories, which are good opportunities, but they're starting from rather small categories, which is why their growth is so high. I'm just going to take a couple minutes here and go into 4 different categories, which we can talk about. Mintel broke specialty foods into essentials, plant-based, snacks, and beverages. And you can see oils and vinegars and condiments are in nut and seed butters. These are all within these essentials. They represent 41% of the market. They're growing slightly ahead of the pace of the total market. And I mentioned before the top 4 categories, 50% of sales. During COVID, certain areas, I think we all know baking got a big boost, oils and vinegars got a big boost, soup got a big boost. And then specialty items at the beginning of the pandemic, people were passing over specialty for conventional. But then when a lot of the conventional brands were sold, they moved into the specialty. So in long term, it has really helped specialty food products. Plant-based products growing three times the pace of the total specialty market, up 27%. A lot of that is in plant-based milk. All categories got a boost during the pandemic, and will continue to grow very quickly. Snacks are a big part of the specialty food market in the U.S., 7% of the market. They've kind of matured a little bit. They're growing slower than total specialty market, but during the pandemic, people wanted snacks. They wanted something to comfort them. So specialty snacks were growing a lot faster than conventional, and they will continue to grow going forward. Beverages, 17.5% of the total market, growing at about the same pace. Coffee, water, and fresh juices dominate the market. Coffee, water, things that you would be drinking at home obviously grew a lot, and the grab and grow items like ready-to-drink coffee, ready-to-drink tea, refrigerated juices fell during COVID. So, just some ideas about what was up and what was down during that part. So just a quick wrap up. The pandemic economy will be in force through 2020. It'll start to slowly wane next year, but we are predicting, along with Mattel, the growth rate for sales of food at home will be roughly twice what it would have been without the pandemic. So there is a great opportunity there for the food at home products. The essentials will remain the main beneficiary. While people are sheltering, olive oils, condiments, different things like that, people are going to be buying those. Plant-based specialty, again, has a lot of runway left for growth. Snacks has had its growth phase. The new future will be a little bit low the trend, but big categories like chips and chocolate will be going along strong, and specialty beverages will continue to grow at a great rate. So that's what I have to share, Dimitri. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ron. It was really interesting. And we'll be back after the presentation of Julia's and Daniel's. So Julia, are you ready?
I am ready.
Great.
Can you see my slides?
Yes, right now, yes. Great.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much, Julia.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation. It is such an honor to join you today. And I have a lot of slides because I know you'll be able to see the presentation later, but I want to just run through some of the highlights. So first, a word about USFIA, the U.S. Fashion Industry Association. Our motto is fashion made possible by global trade. And even in these difficult times, we find that the global brands and retailers who are our members are still doing a lot of business, and business is expanding. So I'm happy to share some thoughts with you today. Our work for the industry at USFIA is communication, information that we share with our members, education, webinars that we do on a regular basis, and of course, advocacy with government officials. So a few words about what do fashion brands and retailers think in the US, and I'm sharing some perspectives from our fashion industry benchmarking study last year. And the obvious thing that everyone has talked about, COVID-19 affects everything that we're doing this year. So I just wanted to share a couple of slides that kind of show you the roller coaster ride we've been on here for retail sales in the US, where you can see, more than a decade of relatively stable sales with a huge drop in April, a huge increase in May, and we currently are still above the average that we might have seen in the past. So, and compared to a year ago, good news for us was that September sales were up, and in September, the sales at clothing and accessory stores were up more than other types of stores, up 11%. Which was great news for our members, because while we mainly focus on apparel, our members also sell home textiles, footwear, accessories, and other products. So this was great news. However, we're running into some supply chain issues, and I'm sharing a slide from our conference earlier this month that kind of look at what happened with monthly cargo volumes into the East Coast, into the Port of New York and New Jersey, where they were down, obviously, this year, and then finally were positive in August and then surged in September. And we are now seeing, obviously, definitely some issues with the supply lines for cargo that's coming into the ports. So a few sourcing insights from our benchmarking study. And all right, the obvious is, COVID-19 disrupted the supply chains. It affected workers. It made it more difficult to conduct factory audits. So you kind of see the breadth of the impact on business here. In our benchmarking survey, the bad news was that for the 7 years that we've done this survey, that was the least optimistic outcome, less optimism about the next 5 years. However, what I thought was a relatively silver lining to that cloud is that we still had more than half of the respondents who were optimistic or somewhat optimistic about the 5-year horizon. The good news in our benchmarking survey is that even in the midst of COVID, companies are planning to hire, and expanding hiring obviously suggests expanding business. The positions most likely for hiring, and I know some earlier speakers talked about sustainability, compliance-related specialists and managers, supply chain specialists like logistics, sourcing specialists and data scientists were the types of positions that companies are looking to continue to hire even in COVID times. This is probably the slide that I think is the most important, and I want to spend just a few minutes on this slide because in our benchmarking survey, we try to do what we call the sourcing scorecard. So kind of like a Yelp review from sourcing executives on what are the things that they look at and how do they balance when making sourcing decisions. And so put aside the impact of COVID, but in general, what is it that companies are looking at? And we look at the criteria of speed to market, sourcing cost, flexibility and agility, and then 2 risk factors, risk of labor and social compliance and risk of environmental compliance. And what I think is really important when we drill down and when I talk with members is it's the concept of flexibility and agility that in some ways outranks other criteria. Speed to market, that's an issue that obviously geography has an impact on. Sourcing cost, traditionally everyone thought that cost was the major issue for sourcing decisions, right? That it was the lowest price. But that's not necessarily true. And I think that's at a range of companies, not just the high-end designer type of brands and retailers either, that agility and flexibility are key. So when we did our survey this year, we didn't break out European countries, I'm sorry, but we kind of tried to look at Europe as a whole. And what I think you could see is that obviously, Europe is at the top of the list for no risk of labor and social compliance, risk of environmental compliance. That's not an issue for European sourcing. The places where companies may have had a different perspective, and once again, this isn't talking about Greece, it's talking about Europe as a whole, is looking at cost and flexibility and agility. But I think it's the flexibility and agility area where there's a great opportunity to enhance and expand sourcing as there's more contact and understanding about doing business together. So let me move on. I just wanted to say briefly, sustainability is a key priority. 70% of respondents said they're allocating more resources for sustainability and social compliance, which actually was kind of surprising since many of the brands and retailers here in the US had furloughed staff and laid off staff during the same time period. And I want to share this slide from our premier partner with US FIA, PwC, who in their holiday outlook for October particularly highlighted the fact that these are priorities for younger shoppers. And so I think it's a key issue. And as I say, it's an advantage that European suppliers have of, positive on labor practices and looking at carbon footprint issues. So just briefly, let me say a last few words because it's November. We're in the holiday outlook here in the US. More than half of consumers said they're going to spend the same or more this holiday season, which I think is a positive aspect, since even though just over half said that they do have pandemic impacted income levels here. So that's going to make a difference, but we still are pretty positive on holiday outlook for this year and very bullish for 2021. Others have talked about, you heard some great presentations and looking at online shopping, and once again, what's happening this year is the revolution is really no longer a revolution. It's every day. Shopping is being done online, the clear winner in our outlook for 2020. So thank you so much for the chance to talk with you today and look forward to questions later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julia, for your really, really interesting presentation and some figures that definitely we're going to discuss them in the panel later.
Great.
So, Daniel, let's have in our screen Daniel.
How you doing?
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I don't have slides. However, I think, our industry, and we primarily represent the dietary supplement industry, is considerably up. Everyone wants to stay very healthy in this pandemic. The global phenomenon of self-care, both the dietary supplement industry, over-the-counter industry, are up significantly. Some examples of that are alphabet vitamins A, B, C, D, E, K, have been up over double digit every month of the year, hitting a high point of 52% online in June of this year. So there was really a limited waxing or waning, if you will, of sales in that regard. As Julia just pointed out, our industry has been moving away from independent retail to online significantly over the past 5 years, and you've really seen that spike throughout the pandemic, and you'll continue to see that. But it's not just multivitamins, though I think what you see are globally stories. You saw in the UK, the Prime Minister there wanted vitamin D to give to everybody in the UK. So I think more and more dietary supplements, especially vitamins, are becoming part of everybody's really day in, day out life, more of a kitchen table product than anything that's on a special basis or a non-routine basis in that regard. So you're seeing more of that. You're also seeing greater penetration into products with immune claims, things like elderberry, primarily from the US as well as Europe, Austria, Germany is where it's grown. Those products are up significantly because folks want to stay healthy. They want alternatives to to prescriptions, and they don't want to go to their doctors. That's the other thing right now in the US. This summer, it hit a high point. Doctors' visits were down 67%. Telemedicine was up over 30%. So more and more folks are doing things like we are today with this interface. And so that really puts a lot more in the hands of the people on the call versus getting your script and getting it filled while you're at a medical center or anything like that. So people are really looking in that regard to stay healthy. So immune products, botanicals like elderberry, echinacea, probiotics are also significantly up. I know probiotics and yogurt is a big part of Greek culture, no pun intended. Those are growing even more significantly in the US as there is so much science behind how they keep people's immune systems healthy, and folks are really looking at that right now, especially with families with children. So, but what does that mean? That doesn't just mean it's a rush to market. We've seen some folks, some of our members, big companies like Now Foods, Nature's Way, they've done some market surveys and shown that there are, through the internet retailers, unfortunately, because they don't necessarily have a stake in the ground. I was very interested in Commissioner Yanis's talk earlier about adulterated imports. That's something we've been pushing the agency on hard and love to work with them more on that. We'll discuss that a bit more in a little while, as that's an emerging opportunity, is really nailing down the quality for the dietary supplement industry. There isn't a GFSI, a Global Food Safety Initiative, which I know a lot of the folks on this that deal in the food import area are familiar with, for dietary supplements. So we're working on one with retailers like Walmart called the Supplement Safety Compliance Initiative, which is effectively the principle of GFSI, but put into supplement regime, which is really more and more important now than ever. So the consumer is really demanding that with the added transparency. And also folks want transparency around claims. If you see products or make products with claims about COVID, there's been substantial pushback by the government on those, both FDA, but moreover FTC. Not just in the supplement realm, but FTC sent over 400 warning letters to companies making COVID claims on on products ranging from acupuncture needles to pillows to a variety of liniments, treatments, things like that. So our advice is always don't enter the market with things that sound good to be true. People know that they probably aren't. So that's something that's very important in terms of the trade for the industry, because it really is a global supply chain. That ties also to what Commissioner Yanis had to say. Our industry sources ingredients heavily from Southeast Asia. However, there's been some consideration under this that it may be better to have some of those ingredients available locally. So there's still some ongoing discussions, or look at alternative sources. Are there viable sources in the EU? Are there viable sources in other parts of North America or South America, versus being so heavily dependent on Southeast Asia, where there was a great deal of shutdown and some disruption. However, we haven't really felt the effects of that disruption, I think, largely throughout the industry. Some sectors have. But again, the vitamin mineral sector stayed very strong. Anything with an immune claim stayed very strong. Probably the only sector that suffered because gyms were closed, not just in the United States, but globally, the sports nutrition sectors, because it's more of a habitual lifestyle type product. And so if you're not working out 4 times a week, more than likely you're not purchasing a protein or post or pre-recovery product for your workout. So those are the opportunities with the supplement industry by and large. One of the big questions that remains, and I know it's interesting throughout the EU because there are proposed rules on cannabis products, specifically CBD, cannabidiol. I know that Ireland has proposed the daily level, and throughout the EU they're looking at that as well. So there may be opportunities there in the future as that gets resolved in the US, but it still hasn't been unlikely that it will be in this particular Congress, but possibly to the next Congress. Some folks are hopeful in that. There's also quite a bit of investment in green technologies right now. Folks really do want to see, and we do represent a significant sector of the personal care industry. And it was good to see the folks from specialty foods talk about meat alternatives. I think folks are looking at petroleum alternatives as personal care. They really want to move away from petroleum dependence and look at more natural ingredients as it pertains to their personal care. If they're going to put in their kids' hair on their kids' skin, I don't think they want to think about a 55-gallon drum of light sweet crude oil. They'd rather see those sourced from plants. So those opportunities continue to outpace in terms of growth traditional personal care, about 4 to 1. So that we anticipate to continue. While they started a smaller part of the market, I think you walk into any retailer or you go online and you really see the growth in personal care in either natural or organic now has become more and more significant. But to reiterate, I think the biggest opportunity and kind of skate where the puck is going is really going to be on the supply chain and transparency. Is how to, with the emergence of internet retailers, as well as big box retailers playing such a significant role throughout the pandemic, having that transparency on product quality. Product claims are easier to sniff out. As we said, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, but what do we do on product quality? And so I think that's really going to be the next step, is how much traceability is throughout the supply chain for the natural products industry, starting probably the focus on supplements. Is there a GFSI-like movement towards that? We're very happy to say we've moved the ball significantly in that regard, and we should have audits up and running, GFSI-like audits. They cover the U.S. regulatory requirements in January of this year, but we are looking globally. I think one of the things we've seen throughout the pandemic is folks don't necessarily have the ability to go visit facilities with travel restrictions. And so we're really depending more and more on technology to do virtual audits. So what does that mean? How do you have a global virtual audit? So that's a problem that we are addressing as an organization. Is one that I think the consumers want more and more knowledge of as they see how diverse and how much of a zigzag there are in the supply chains, and being able to cover that in real time. So that's a huge opportunity, and we look forward to really any questions you have, and looking forward to working with you on product quality globally. So thank you, Dimitris.
Daniel, thank you very much. So I will address to all of you 2-3 questions that I would like to discuss with you. First of all, it is really interesting. It's sector that has a lot of disruption, but if we collect all this data, we can find out that it is from the beginning, the disruptions in the supply chain is the way that people the consumer reacts in all this pandemic concerning their health issues. They became more healthy, and they have a mindset that they have to search a lot because they have the time due to online shops in order to purchase their goods, and especially the ones that we're discussing. What I would like to address is with our company also, Idea Monkeys in United States, we have done a small survey, and now it's ongoing. And we see that there is a very big fear, let's say, and from the wholesalers that all this disruption with online shop, they are not going to have the position in the physical points, so all this turnover will decrease a lot, and because a production line cannot refer to its client itself. So all this is a very big issue that is coming up. On the other hand, what we really see is that small companies, new companies and new production are being established in the United States in order to replace some really big orders from Asian countries, or due to all these tariffs and all these Asian Pacific now free trade agreements. It's a new environment. So can you please just 1-2 words, in this environment, do you believe that Greek companies, that they have all these years the opportunity to drive their companies and to build products for smaller consumer targets, that it wasn't so huge, and they have really quality products? Is there any opportunity of having joint ventures or cooperation with United States company and vice versa, so as to build this bilateral trade in each sector? Please, let's start from Julia, because she's the female of our panel. Please.
Thank you very much. I absolutely think there's a lot of opportunity right now, and you highlighted some of the really key points, right? That during the shutdown, we've seen a real surge in entrepreneurial spirit here in the US, right? A lot of people, you see stories that they have gone and started their own companies, and because of the digital advances, right, it's relatively easier now to sell. You can start your company, a direct-to-consumer company selling online relatively easily. The key then is to look at sourcing, and I think that's where there's a real opportunity for more sourcing to the US from Greece, is by looking at, you can digitize your material selection, you can work online for the shape and the fit and the drape of the garment, for example, and come up with a great product that is very unique, which is what people are looking for now, especially when you only have to see the top half of us, right? When we're in a meeting like this, but we definitely want to be wearing something that's a little bit different than a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. So I think there's some terrific opportunities right now.
Great, thank you, Julia. Ron, do you believe? Let's go on with the same question. I mean, I would like to have your input in such kind of. What are the opportunities of the Greek companies concerning, we have discussed a lot of time between us, we have done a lot of efforts, but Greek companies are small, but right now everyone had the issue that there was a filter, a kind of a filter from the wholesalers and the distributors in United States, that because they had a lot of SKUs, they couldn't accept new ones. And it was really big, the effort. So what is going on now?
Yeah, Dimitris, I think that's changing. I mean, American consumers are looking for authentic products, and they're looking for specialty products. Those have been growing a lot over the years. And I think we are going to see a lot of distributors getting those products into their warehouses and getting them out to the stores. And then I think you're going to see a lot of companies that are working with just selling those things online, so they're not going through that supply chain. So I think with Greek products, with some of the smaller producers, some of the more authentic products, there's a really great opportunity in the United States, and that they just need to find kind of the way that they can come in, and that's not necessarily going to be going through the large grocery wholesalers. It might be going through small regional specialty distributors, or an online market in the US. I just think the way products are being distributed are changing, but consumers ultimately want the authentic products, and if the consumers want them, somebody will find a way to get it to them.
Thank you, Ron. And Daniel, I would like to ask, that here is the land of Hippocrates, that he was the one who invented, let's say, it's the land who creates the natural products and the natural care products and all these all this environment that we're talking now about, the healthier food and all that stuff. So what do you believe? Because we have discussed together and we remember that it's a very, very small market niche, but it's a very growing market. What do you believe about this new era?
No, Demetrius, and I'm glad I didn't wear my sweatshirt, Julia. I think one of the things, I'm going to take what both Ron and Julia said. I think it's applicable, but I think in our industry, a dietary supplement in itself is approaching 50 billion here in the U.S. domestically. I think as far as shipping goes, sometimes if it's an authentic product, if somebody wants it, a product from Greece, they'll pay a little more for shipping. So I think you'll see that, and to Ron's point about using a specialty distributor versus kind of a big food, drug, mass warehouse. However, we've also seen where there's a lot more partnerships, a lot more just-in-time manufacturing is needed. So we've seen brands from other countries work hard with a partner in the U.S. and have an OEM in the U.S. that they haven't partnered with before, that during the pandemic, they decided, hey, look, we're going to the brand will stay, kind of the IP and the brand will stay with the host country, but the OEM is in the U.S. and those folks work well. You're seeing such a growth, and I imagine the same for Ron too. You're seeing such a growth in private label that I really think if folks want to enter the market, that is a big, big way. It's so integrated now in terms of vertically. And if you're at any part in the supply chain, you don't necessarily want to be the brand holder. I think folks right now are really looking for brands that, I hate to say it, but kind of the brands they've seen all their life. It gives them a degree of comfort. And so at least on things they're going to put in their body, I think maybe externally they're a little more open to trying new things, and those are more field-based than kind of having that tried and true thing. But I think those are the factors. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different opportunities, Demetrius. It really depends on what target you're trying to hit and how big you want your distribution to be. That's really the question. And then the bigger thing, especially in the dietary supplement realm or the over-the-counter realm, is work with a partner on efficacy. I mean, that's a big thing that shapes our industry right now. As you look at, you can't go a day in the news without seeing a story on vitamin D. Naturally, vitamin D pardon the pun again, vitamin D sales are up, close to 20%. So things like that you can't keep on store shelves. So, I think really look and see what the market opportunity is.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And specific now, what is Julia, what do you believe about the next year? I mean, about 2021. Of course, nobody knows. We have all this data that we're trying to analyze every day, but as everybody knows, sometimes we use even everyone tell me lies with statistics, as we call, because we try, to figure out what is behind the numbers. So about your specific field, about the brands and all this industry, that it's more sustainable, and about the stock and all that stuff that happened all these years. We saw also a new, really athletic brand in New York. They have released a new experience store in Fifth Avenue, and it was digitalized and completely different than anyone expected last year. And then COVID came. So what do you believe what is coming on? What do you believe? Do you believe that we are going to buy things through virtual reality, masks, and or we are going to be socialized again in the really next future after, of course, the vaccine and all that stuff that it's being running right now?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're right. We're not necessarily that great at predictions, but talking with brands and retailers, most folks expect pretty much a roller coaster ride over the next 6 months. That we're here in the U.S., we're particularly feeling the impact of COVID right now with incredible spikes. But we still have, but stores are still open in many locations, and many shoppers want to still go to the store as well as online shopping. So we think Christmas will be pretty good. We'll be okay. Next year, we're going to have a roller coaster ride, and we're probably coming out of it next summer. Now, for some companies, they warehoused product last year that they're going to sell this year, so that there'll be a decrease in production in the short term. But I think we're expecting a very strong rebound, as you say, as the vaccine is out and as spikes in the virus are decreasing. When we get to that point, we expect people are going to want the shopping experience. They're going to want the social experience that shopping brings in person as well as online. And so the second half of 2021, we're pretty optimistic about right now.
Thank you, Julia. Ron, concerning, it's almost the same question, but I would like just to add, specialty food were mostly, purchased through the food service, from restaurants, from cafeterias, from HoReCa industry in general, hotels, and also mainly from supermarkets or specialty stores. All these, it was a very big disruption all these years, and we see that even in New York, that I know well, is about 1,200 restaurants open from 22,000. So what is going on with the market? What do you believe the next 6 months to 1 year? What do you believe as an expert, not through the numbers? As your feeling personally after 40 years in this market.
Yeah, I feel that people are going to be preparing products at home. People have learned to, enjoy Greek food, enjoy Indian food, and they've come to buy the ingredients, and they've discovered that they like to cook at home. So I think there's going to be a lot of potential for products, for Greek products. People will be making their feta and watermelon salad at home rather than getting it at a restaurant, at least through probably May or June. I do see a pent-up need and almost like to get back out into the world. And I think once everything is good, that people will be going out into restaurants a lot. People really miss that social interaction and, the excitement. And I think once the vaccine gets more prevalent, that there'll be a fairly strong rebound. Obviously, there'll be a lot of restaurants which, could not survive it and are out of business. But I think the ones that are remaining will get very strong business once everything is better. And I see that for the second half of 2021.
Thank you very much, Ron. And final, Daniel, concerning this market, and I remember that also we were discussing a year ago about the functional foods and about all this new, this new food trend that it's coming, and even about the soya milk, if it is a milk, and all that stuff that we were discussing. Do you believe that there were so many changes in the mindset of the consumer that even if we start socializing again everything will be more sustainable and more healthy, and this will be a must for the companies. And what is your perception for the next year? If you can do any approach on this.
Sure. I think primarily, Demetrius, folks are going to want to stay healthy, right? I mean, that's the issue. Everyone's doing everything they can to stay healthy. They want to stay out of medical centers, you know, hospitals, things like that. They're scared about the spread that way. So I think the growth will continue in that regard. Some of the green initiatives, the sustainability initiatives may take a back seat to that. But I think, you know, I think what we've really seen throughout all this is people are so bullish on self-care, on having the ability to, you know, go to a store or go online and purchase the products that they really keep as part of their day in, day out health regimen, whether that's, you know, whether that's a Greek herb, whether that's, you know, vitamin D, whether it's a probiotic. You know, I think those patterns are up and are, you know, while they may not stay at the 52% level we talked about over the summer on the alphabet vitamins, I don't see them going away. And so really the next question is, you know, for companies to differentiate themselves, they're really going to have to put in additional work, not just on the marketing side, but really on the efficacy side. What does it mean? You know, what does it mean to keep people healthy? How do you translate that to consumers in science? So I think that's a big part of where the opportunity lies. And like I said, the market will continue to be bullish for natural products, I think, especially those that are, you know, in the self-care arena.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you one by one and all of you together. Thank you very much for joining us. It was really, really interesting. I hope that everyone joined it as much as I do. And what I wish is, first of all of us to be healthy, first of all. The second is I would like to invite you on behalf of the American Chamber of Commerce and myself in Greece, and I wish everything will be different next semester, and after the next semester we will be really happy to be everyone and join together, and also to see you in the specific exhibitions and the shows that we really missed them because it was a meeting point and not so much, you know, all this commercial. It wasn't only the commercial, but we discovered that it was the sector's engagement and the sector's meeting point. So even if we were the same persons maybe most of the times, but, you know, it was this engagement that missed us really a lot. Thank you very, very much, and I wish you all the best for you. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. Now, Dina, the floor is yours. Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ.
Σας ευχαριστούμε. We would like to thank you very much, Mr. Dimitris Karvasilis, and of course all our esteemed guests for their excellent presentations and panel. And now we will move forward to Mr. Alan Seiler, Senior Food Consulting Services for EAS Consulting Group, our partner for FDA issues, who will be presenting the basic steps that a Greek company should follow in order to successfully export food and other products to the US market. Alan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and Dina. Is my audio coming through? Dina, can you hear me?
Yeah, of course, everything's great. We can already see your presentation.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone. I was able to be with you in person last year. That was an outstanding experience to get to know you better and understand the interests of the companies that are members of the American-Hellenic Chamber of Commerce. What my role is today in a few minutes is to try to convince you, and I did last year, try it on the same topic, to show you that it is not very difficult to export products to the US. And I am going to focus on the FDA part of it. I know there's trade related to customs and border protection and tariffs, possibly things like that. I am not going to focus on that. Others would be more comfortable and better equipped. But with that, I would just like to say that EAS has been around for 40 years. We're a consulting company just outside of Washington, D.C. Once the COVID situation changes, if you happen to find yourselves in the Washington, D.C. area, we would love to have you let us know and come and visit us. This is the office that is not being used right now, as many of your offices might be. But we are still working and doing quite a bit of consulting business. I'd like to talk a little about imports. First of all, set the stage. As you can see, the imports of food products in the United States continues to go up. I'm not going to focus on the data. This presentation will be available, and you can certainly look at it in more detail. I'm going to hit the high points of most of the slides. The demand, as I heard from previous presenters, Americans love new ideas, new foods, things that are different than what they're used to. In some countries and societies, that's not true, but in the United States, if you have something new and can demonstrate its value, particularly its nutritional value, you're probably going to be a success. While the imports have gone up, the sampling at the ports of entry by FDA, as you can see, through 2020 have gone down. Part of this is that FDA did have some restrictions on its inspection staff at the ports of entry, and so more foods were going through without examination or without sampling. But surprisingly, the number that were sampled has not gone down that much. The ones that were examined has gone down because that required a physical presence. And sampling also in the United States can be done by FDA or can be done by private labs. And EAS, what is different this year than last year, is we are now working with certified laboratories. They have offices and laboratories on the East Coast, the West Coast, and in Chicago, as well as Canada. And they do a lot of work with sampling imports on behalf of importers to prove to FDA the product is safe. Okay, the refusals. The number of refusals, and I'm sorry about the bottom. I took this from FDA and I didn't have any way to add, but please understand that the far right, the 577, is the fiscal year refusals starting in October of 2020. Obviously, the year is just starting, so the number is quite low. But if you look at the prior one, 55,000 refusals in fiscal year 2020 versus 7,300, almost 7,400 in 2019, you can see that the number of refusals has gone down. That may very well be because there's been less reviews at the ports of entry. I can assure you that probably will not continue. Where have the refusals come from? I know it's hard to find Greece, but I can assure you that based on my geography, and yes, I'm an American, and I hope my geography understanding is better than most Americans, we can see that the number of refusals from Greece is in the lower part of the color category, so that is a good sign. Exports to the U.S. from Greece, which is on the right side, is more important than the left side. I put the left side in for your reference. Let's just say that in 2018, which is somewhat ancient history, the U.S. imported almost $500 million worth of goods from Greece that were foods, with these listed being the top ones. Now let's talk a little about the FDA requirements to import a food. One of the things, I just got a question this morning I want to share with you from a European, not a Greek company, was that we comply with the EU regulations, with our EU member country regulations, and we are ISO certified. So therefore, that should meet all of the requirements that FDA has. I can assure you that is not the case. It's not that the EU requirements or the ISO requirements or the individual country requirements aren't good. They are good, but they do not meet the US requirements. And that's because of a 2011 law called the Food Safety Modernization Act, put a bunch of new regulations in place. The last one being, or pretty much the last one being, the Foreign Supplier Verification Program, which is the program you want to be most knowledgeable about. So what are the 6 simple steps? And this is somewhat of a repeat from last year, but I think it's worth repeating. And that is, you need to have an FSVP, which is Foreign Supplier Verification Program, an FSVP importer office in the US. The office doesn't have to register or be licensed or get anybody's approval. It can be somebody's living room, somebody's garage, somebody's basement. It can be your broker if they want to do it, but it must be located in the US, and there must be somebody there if FDA decides to inspect the office. Now, the product does not need to be at the FSVP importer's office. You can have that product sitting in a warehouse 2,000 miles away in the United States. What the FSVP importer must have is interest in the product. So, for instance, you could not hire EAS to be the FSVP importer because we don't really have an interest in the product other than we'd like it to be successfully imported. You also have to hire a private U.S. customs agent. Now, that has to do with the trade paperwork. I'm looking at number 2. And then number 3, it is required that whoever is manufacturing the food that the exporter is shipping from Greece to the U.S., they must be compliant with the FDA FSMA regulations. Go through that a little bit. The labeling, believe it or not, labeling is the most likely reason a food product will not get into the U.S. We have seen food labels where there have been no English. We have seen food labels that have some English and some Chinese or Indian or some other language. And as soon as FDA sees that at the port of entry, they are going to hold it until they can review labeling. And you never want your product held. So we do a lot of labeling work. And then you need a U.S. agent, and we do this work, to register the manufacturer, not the FSVP importer here in the U.S., but the Greek manufacturer must be registered with FDA. We do that work. So for step 1, to repeat really quick, because I know we're running a little behind time, is that the FSVP importer must have an office in the U.S. There must be somebody there. You must have a DUNS number, which is required. And I'm sure all of you, if you're exporting to the U.S., you already have that. DUNS number is easy to obtain. If you need assistance, EAS can help you get that number. The most important thing, though, is you need to have somebody on staff at the FSVP importer's office that is a qualified individual. Qualified individual means somebody that is knowledgeable in food safety, the FSVP regulation, and the preventive controls regulation, which applies to the Greek manufacturer. We do that work. The qualified individual for the FSVP importer can be an employee or can be contracted. We provide this service under contract, and this person has to gather a lot of information about the manufacturer and the product in order to approve the manufacturer. FDA, when they come to inspect the FSVP importer, wants to see all of that documentation. Okay, the customs agent, I'm going to go by that. You can refer to that yourself. It is just somebody that files the trade paperwork. The step 3 is that the manufacturer in Greece must comply with the FDA preventive controls for human foods. The fact that the manufacturer complies with ISO or the Greek country requirements or the EU directives is not enough. It must comply with the U.S. Food safety regulations on preventive controls if you're going to make it into the U.S. And once FDA starts doing foreign inspections, there's a possibility that some manufacturers in Greece will see FDA inspectors. Of course, they're not doing that now and haven't been for almost 6 or 7 months, or maybe longer. Okay, the next thing is labeling. And I think that the important part I've already said, in July of 2020, the U.S. went through some updates of its labeling requirements for all foods. This was announced about 3 years before that, so everybody was making changes as their labels ran out and they had to print new ones. It's very important that you have the current requirements for labels, including nutrition facts, claims. I know we had some people from the Natural Products Association, and we also had people that were representing the Specialty Foods Association. And sometimes these kinds of products, the manufacturers want to make claims, and you have to be very careful what those claims are. We have a full team that can look at that. Finally, the qualified individual, as I mentioned earlier, I've kind of said all of this. there are really two types of FSVP importers. One that is called a very small importer, because all the food that it imports into the U.S. is less than $1 million a year over the last 3 years. If you are a very small, or if you are working with a company that is a very small FSVP importer, the documents that they have to assemble for your food are very limited, only a few letters, maybe an FDA form. If you are not a very small importer, then those documents become much more substantial. We provide that service, a qualified individual service, whether it's for a very small FSVP importer or a normal one. And finally, you have to have an agent that, if you aren't the manufacturer and you buy the product from a Greek manufacturer to export, you have to be sure that Greek manufacturer is registered with FDA. And they cannot register themselves. They have to have someone located in the U.S. act as their U.S. agent to register the manufacturer with FDA. We do that. So those steps, EAS can do all of them except the U.S. Customs agent that files the trade paperwork. We do have companies that we have worked with that we have found to be very reliable that can do that, and we can recommend it, but we don't do that. So I hope that's been clear. I hope I haven't gone too fast, but I did want to cover all of that. So I think it's time to start exporting. So I would like to also say that we do cover, if you do have a problem where your product is held at the U.S. port of entry, we have a full imports team that actually some of the people on that team worked at FDA. They retired from FDA or U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And so there are many reasons why products get held at the border, and this slide contains some of them. I won't go over the details, but also if you find that the manufacturer is on the FDA red list, or let's say a product, we see this shrimp from Vietnam and Indonesia are pretty much on a high alert list by FDA. And the only way you can get shrimp from Indonesia or from Vietnam into the US is if you get your company on a green list. Usually when you're on a list with FDA, that's not a good thing, but the green list is a good thing. We can help you get off the red list or get on the green list, and I'll bypass the yellow list for now. So Dina, I have ended my presentation and I can take questions if there's time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan, for your presentation. I think it was quite simple, and it will also be uploaded to our website, so it will be easily accessible. I would like also to mention here that we are currently under the renewal period for the FDA registration. So all food facilities should renew their registrations until December 31, 2020. And of course, TradeUSA and EAS Consulting can help you on that. And we do have a question that says, if I purchase various food products from locations outside of Greece and then assemble them in Greece and export these to the US, can I list Greece as the country of origin?
That's a very good question, Dina. Thank you. The word that we have to understand is substantial transformation. Substantial transformation means when you take various ingredients and you assemble them, manufacture them, cook them, package them, and these ingredients came from all over Europe or maybe outside of Europe. But if you assemble them and you manufacture them and you package them in Greece, then that is a product of Greece, and the country of origin would be Greece. If all you're doing is taking a product that is already in a finished container and you're relabeling it, but you're not doing anything else with it, you're relabeling it so it has the right US labels on it, and then you're putting it in boxes and pallets and shipping it to the US, in that case, there is no substantial transformation. The product didn't change. All that changed was the labeling. The package did not change. So there is no substantial transformation. In that case, the product would have a country of origin wherever it came from before you relabeled it.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for being here today with us, and your time devoted. Και τώρα θα ήθελα να δώσω το λόγο στον κύριο Σπιρτούνια για να προχωρήσει στην επόμενη συζήτηση σχετικά με το ρόλο της πολιτείας στην ελληνική εξωστρέφεια. Κύριε Σπιρτούνια, έχετε το λόγο.
Σε ευχαριστώ, Ντίνα. Σε αυτό το σημείο θα ήθελα να καλωσορίσω τον κύριο Ιωάννη Μιλή, Γενικό Γραμματέα Διεθνών Οικονομικών Σχέσεων και Εξωστρέφειας του Υπουργείου Εξωτερικών και Πρόεδρο του Enterprise Greece, καθώς και τον κύριο Γρηγόρη Θωματόπουλο, Γενικό Διευθυντή του Οργανισμού Ασφάλισης Εξαγωγικών Πιστώσεων, με τους οποίους θα έχουμε μια συζήτηση μετά από σύντομες αρχικά τοποθετήσεις τους. Καλό απόγευμα, κύριε.
Καλώς απόγευμα. Καλώς απόγευμα.
Χαρά μας που είσαστε μαζί μας. Θα ήθελα να ξεκινήσω με εσάς, κύριε Σβερλή. Αρχικά, βέβαια, να σας συγχαρώ για την τοποθέτησή σας ως Γενικό Γραμματέα Διεθνών Οικονομικών Σχέσεων και να σας ευχηθώ εκ μέρους του επιμελητηρίου μας καλή επιτυχία στο έργο σας. Έχετε λοιπόν το λόγο για την εισαγωγική σας τοποθέτηση.
Να είστε καλά, ευχαριστώ πολύ. Θα μιλήσουμε στα αγγλικά, ώστε να μας καταλαβαίνουν και οι φίλοι μας από την Αμερική. Dear friends, firstly, I would like to thank the American-Hellenic Chamber of Commerce for organizing the 5th ExportUSA Forum. I must say that the American-Hellenic Chamber of Commerce all these years is doing a great job, and it gives us a great opportunity to continue all the great cooperation that we are building the last 15 months and last years also with the American government. I will focus immediately on how we approach economic diplomacy as a tool for opening up the Greek economy and for assisting the Greek business community in foreign markets, and particularly in the US market. In order to do that, I'm going to tell you how we practically apply economic diplomacy. We initiated the strategic dialogue between Greece and the USA as a dynamic tool for broadening our cooperation. And a good example is the one that I will mention right away. In this structured dialogue, was instrumental in the decision of the Greek Ministry of Digital Governance to make sure that there will be no questions in the future about the provenance of the software tools used by government agencies. This policy change led to the USTR's decision to remove Greece from the special 301 watch list and eventually allowed a major US company, namely Microsoft, to announce its decision to invest up to €1 billion in new data centers in Greece, and also another one, Digital Realty, to announce last week that it is investing up to €400 million in the acquisition of Lambda Helix based in the Attica area. During the last visit of Secretary Pompeo in Thessaloniki, we signed the agreement on scientific and technological cooperation. This agreement is useful not just for its own provisions, but also as a sign for encouraging more US technology investment in Greece. The fact that it was signed at the facilities of Pfizer served that purpose. Our strategic dialogue covers other topics as well. It is a useful tool for discussing market access issues in the US for Greek products, and also for stressing to our American friends the importance that Greece attaches to the protection of indications of origin and geographical indications related to Greek agri-food products. You are all aware the ongoing dispute regarding subsidies to Boeing and Airbus in the context of WTO. Greece is not directly benefiting from building Airbus planes in Europe. Nevertheless, we are part of the European family, and as such, we bear the cost of the additional duties that the US administration has imposed on a variety of European products. Through the strategic dialogue, we have been tirelessly pointing out that hitting with duties a loyal ally who is not involved in Airbus production, it is unfair. Similarly, we are certain that our constant efforts and external relations have borne fruits in the recent reduction of the countervailing duties that the US administration has imposed on certain Greek aluminum products. I remind you that the US exports to Greece in 2019 registered an unprecedented increase of 77% compared to 2018. Hence, Greek exports decreased by 4.8%, mainly due to some tariff barriers imposed by the USTR, affecting Greek exports of steel and agri-food products to the US. In addition, Non-tariff barriers impede the access of Greek meat, eggs, and certain fruits to the American market. On the investment front, we are all aware of the positive news. The Hellenicon project is moving ahead thanks to the deal reached regarding to the participation of Mohegan Gaming and Entertainment at the Casino and Resort project. We have all also aware of the investment project related to US interest on our participation in the Neorion, Elefsina, Skaramaga shipyards, energy networks, and port management at Kavala, Alexandroupoli, Goumenitsa, and Iraklion, some of which involve the US Development Finance Corporation. We strongly believe that Greece's interests align well with the broader US strategic interests in the area extending beyond the economic sphere. Our economic diplomacy serves well our common goals with the US. Needless to stress again that this government means business. We view our role as facilitators for expanding Greek business activities abroad and attracting foreign investment in Greece. To that purpose, under the guidelines of Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, we are changing the investment environment, abolishing hurdles, but also taking the initiative in presenting abroad the new landscape and the new opportunities in Greece. We are facing a new era full of challenges, where survival and development of the Greek economy should be matched with new innovative products and extroverted perspectives. Greece must be viewed not as a market of 11 million customers, but as the springboard for investing and doing business in Southeastern Europe, the Eastern Mediterranean, and the Middle East. To that purpose, we at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through our extensive network of the economic and commercial departments of the Greek embassies abroad and the Enterprise Greece, we are at your service in order to address your business needs in foreign markets. My associates and I were available to discuss with you ways to employ all aspects of economic diplomacy and the available tools that we have in order to promote our common interests. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Merlis, for your introduction. Very enlightening to our foreign delegates of the forum. Let me pass now the floor to Mr. Stamatopoulos. Κύριε Σταματόπουλο, έχετε το λόγο για την εισαγωγική σου τοποθέτηση. Σας ευχαριστώ. Να υπενθυμίσω ότι έχουμε ταυτόχρονη μετάφραση. Οπότε...
Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ. The Secretary General has spoken in English, so I will try to do the same. I was planning to speak in Greek, but nevertheless, there's no problem. We, the ECIO, the Export Credit Insurance Organization, we are the Greek ECA, the Greek Export Credit Agent. So our mandate is to support Greek exporting companies around the world. Regarding the US exports, the USA is ranked in the top 5 countries that we have as insured contracts. And what we do is that we're trying to secure the probability of default or non-payment of the Greek company when exporting to another country, and this is up to 95% of the total sales or the total invoice. For the moment, we are in a process of reorganizing the organization, and that was our mandate for 2020, and I believe that in 2021 we will be able to provide Greek exporters with new products regarding credit insurance and also trade finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm coming back now to both of you in order to start a discussion, a conversation, if I may, with some questions, starting with Mr. Smidlis. My first question has to do with what action has the economic diplomacy taken so far in the middle of the era of COVID in order to strengthen and support the Greek exports?
There's a whole policy around COVID that starts from the head of the government, the Prime Minister, and the whole governmental team that has to do with COVID. We cannot take it as a separate part of the Greek economy. And we are prepared all these months, and we are working hard behind in order the Greek companies who want to export, and also the clients, the companies who want to import in Greece, to be ready at the after COVID era in order to move forward. Of course, the recovery fund is a good tool that is coming in our hands, and the government is prepared to help also in this part of the economy. But at the moment, the priority is health, and we're working on that. But as you know, the government from the beginning of Kyriakos Mitsotakis, the plan is something that we really work hard. He's working with plan, I mean. So the plan is that we are preparing all the tools that will be announced the next months in order to help and to put also some effort, financial and not only effort, to all the businesses in order to restart after the COVID area. Because the thing is how we are going to restart, not how to help them now. Now it's the duty of other ministries in order to help the internal businesses to remain alive. As we know, it's a really difficult time all around the world, so also in Greece. So for us, it's important now to keep them alive, and then with special programs to help them in order to move around the Greeks to outside and the opposite.
Thank you. I will go to Mr. Stamatopoulos. I will go from one to another so we can have very interactive. In the meantime, anyone who wants to comment on and let's say intervene in the discussion, please do. What is the role of the OAEP in strengthening the Greek exports now, especially now with the COVID? And have we had any differences from other years in terms of, let's say, bad debt or anything like this?
Well, in the COVID area, we have seen a reluctance from the private companies, the private insurance companies, to support the Greek exporters. So the role and the mandate of ECIO has always been to support any Greek company abroad. So we have seen an increase in demand for credit insurance from the Greek companies, especially in countries where they are like outside, let's say, OECD. So we are, for the moment, we're up 15% in demand and in the credit insured exposure, that the risk we're taking as an organization. We haven't seen for the moment any cases of default regarding COVID. Of course, there are the usual defaults regarding the market, but we are keeping our eyes open regarding the reinsurance market, where we've seen an increase in premiums of 50%. So we are expecting to have not significant losses, but some losses Q3 at the end of the Q3 this year or Q1 in 2021.
Great. Mr. Smirlis, what in your new capacity now as a general secretary, what do you consider to be the priorities of the state in the strengthening the Greek exports? What the state should do? I mean, are you thinking of a new roadmap regarding the exports? Are you perhaps maybe let's say focusing on certain countries where the Greek the state can support more the Greek companies not to export there?
You know that there is already a map about the Greek exports. Of course, we cannot erase this map. There are traditional countries on which the Greek companies are exporting, but for sure, now by having the results of COVID-19, that some countries are affected more than some others, I must tell you that we are going to put some more in the map in order to help these companies to continue exporting. Of course, European Union is a priority as we are members there, so it's easier for them to move around the goods. But of course, for us, it's really important, and we're working hard with strategic dialogue, as we know, with the United States, who's a big ally for us, to have a new era about the barriers and the tariffs and all the difficult measures that we have there. And we are affected, of course, from the agreement between the EU and the States. And I think that we're going to have also some progress there, because for us it's an important market. But of course, there are also new parts of the world that we should take advantage of the new era after COVID and help good businesses from Greece to export there.
I will continue speaking about the COVID. We all know that, we all know that we all, let's say, adapted to a new situation, especially, you know, in utilizing the digital technologies. Do you think that we should, let's say, emphasize or maybe enhance digital platforms or other digital tools for helping, you know, the companies to export to countries like US? I mean, we heard before, you know, from some experts about, you know, the e-marketing and everything. Is it kind of priority that you're thinking to, let's say, give some thoughts on this? Mrs. Midlis, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat, please?
Oh yes. Well, let me repeat that. I said we all now live to let's say to a digital age, and because of the COVID-19, we all adopted new technologies. So, in that respect, do you think that maybe we should emphasize and maybe help, you know, the companies, the export companies, you know, to utilize more the digital platforms in order, you know, to let's say enhance their presence in developed market like the US, for example? Is it something that you are thinking of support and maybe emphasize through your programs?
Already in the COVID, the whole government was digitalized about, and there were a lot of services that helps also business that changed in a fast track way. It was the only, I think, positive or the one of the few positive effects of COVID. And of course, now that we are seeing that even that we are going to have a vacuum, and the next month probably the economies are going to restart, we are pretty sure that this won't happen from one day to another. So we are working on platform. We are working on the digital tools that we have anymore, and that will be part of the business, if I can say. So we're working on platforms where we can. I think that at the first the first 4 or 5 months of 2021, we will be ready in order to have ready tools, ready help desks that are going to give the opportunity to businessmen in order to promote themselves and open channels around the world. Of course, with the states, it's a priority because they are already. It's a country that's already in front in these technologies. So it is a part of the discussion of Enterprise Greece also with them, with the agencies there. So these platforms to to work in a way that it can work properly with the platforms there. And also, we are pretty sure that even that now it's with a question mark, a lot of the expos of the next year will be digital. So we're working really fast in order to be on the new era of exporting by a digital way, to be ready to participate, and the Greek companies not to lose the opportunities that they should have at 2021.
Great, thank you. Mr. Stamatopoulos, can I ask you how much you are covering, how much you cover in terms of your organization covers exports to US?
We're covering up to 120 million for the moment.
So this is the maximum, okay, up to that level, I guess, right?
Those are the numbers until October 2020.
Okay. Are there any special, let's say, procedure for a company, you know, to follow this to ensure, you know, through your organization to or a simple, you know, they apply, they are any specific, especially on we are talking about US market here, okay?
Yes, of course. We treat the US market as any market, to be honest. What we do is that we follow the exporter, meaning that if he has a potential client in the US market, we do a credit report on the US client, And if, for example, a Greek exporter wants to get insured for a million, let's say, euro or dollars, then we provide him with the exposure that he needs if we see that the US buyer is credible enough. Therefore, we have no. We can also insure a single invoice of 10,000, let's say, euros, and this is our competitive advantage regarding, vis-a-vis to the private market. Usually, the private companies do not go so low in insuring companies. So we are there at the start of the Greek exporter, and we can also continue with him in this journey. So we believe that the reform of ECIO will be completed at the end of 2021. We are also looking into digitalizing the organization and restructuring all the pillars of the internal, let's say, procedures. So we are working with the ministry, with the Secretary General, the Deputy Minister, and the Minister, in order to be able to provide a flexible organization. And we have a 5-year business plan that at the end of those 5 years, we will be able to support exports up to 9 to 10 billion euros.
Well, that's quite a lot of money. Can I ask you a question? I mean, last year, or let's say the last 5 years, what was the percentage of the contracts, the insurance contract you have provided, regarding from the total, let's say, exports, specifically for US? What was the percentage?
We were around from 6 to 12%, depending on years.
Is this considered low for you, or is this considered low?
This is considered in the top 5 countries, because we are insuring all around the world. We have a big basis, so it's spread out. So this year is 7.4 to be honest, until October 2020. So I would say around from 6 to 12% on our total exposure.
Great. I want to ask Mr. Smidlis now. What do you think are the prospects of the Greek export companies in the US? I mean, with you mentioned the strategic dialogue, but also, I guess, through the Enterprise Greece, you have let's say, a clear picture of what, let's say, our companies, the Greek companies, what are the potential of our Greek companies. In that sense, in that respect, what actions does the foreign ministry, besides, those that you just mentioned, intend to take in order, to, let's say, push them forward? Because sometimes, they need to be pushed forward in order, to try, to export to the US market.
Of course, there are the usual tools that we have in Enterprise Greece, from where we can assist any Greek company who wants to export everywhere around the world. But the United States are a strategic partner of Greece, so for us it's crucial to increase the number of the companies that can export there. Of course, we know that it's not just a decision of the Greek government, but it's also a decision that passes from, again, I'm saying, from the strategic dialogue, as it is important the two countries to erase some of the obstacles. But as we are a member of the European Union, we know that it's not everything in our hands. So under these conditions, for us, it's important to see how we are going to help, especially the food companies, to go around, the agri-food companies, how we are going to have a good cooperation, because it's not only how we're going to export, but also to make good merges between Greek and American companies at the technology part, at the digital part, as we said, because we should learn from them, and we should put the new Greek companies who are going to, who already are coming, because we are better now with Microsoft and also the rest of the new agreements that we have in Greece. We are going to have new companies that can be good branches and work with the American companies. So we're also trying to concentrate on that. With Enterprise Greece, for us, it's important to make special workshops in order to put together companies from Greece and the United States and to let them cooperate and communicate in order to find solutions. Because, you know, something that we should do as government is, and we see that it works, is that if we put together the companies, then they are coming providing proposals for specific solutions. So then it's easier to help the market work. This is what the government should do. This is what the tools like the Enterprise Greece should have in order to work properly. And this is the way that we are seeing this government, and especially Kyriakos Mitsotakis, the way of working, the way of doing business. It is a government which is really pro-business, and it is because we see that now there are not, we cannot find borders anymore. When we're talking about business, the thing is how you will help the business to go on. And this is a big priority for Greece, especially now that we are seeing that the global economy is pushed a lot. So we need to be fast track in a way on how we help the Greek companies to export. So for us, by putting them in the discussion, all the companies, the priority is to find ways to help them, and that's why we are going to put in front Enterprise Greece on that, because it's a good tool that helps in order to find solutions that are coming in a way ready back to the government, in order to put it in law and in order to help erase the obstacles.
Yes. Mr. Samatopoulos, can I ask you a question regarding, the insurance contracts that you have, for exports? What is the largest, let's say, sector that you're covering, F&B or other sectors more? If we
regarding the US market is F&B.
Yes.
As a total, as the organization is the industrial materials.
Mm-hmm. The difference is large. I mean, there's a huge gap between,
There's a huge gap between, yes, because we have big Greek export companies that we are insured, that they are insured in the organization regarding industrial materials. Mm-hmm. Regarding the US market, most of them are in the F&B industry.
Okay. I have now a question for both of you, because I was thinking before, we started this conversation. I said, okay, we have the state here that is eager, to support through programs, through other initiatives, the exporters. At the same time, we have an organization that has, enough capital, to ensure, let's say the export endeavors. That's why I mentioned before the push forward, because sometimes, here at the Chamber, we think that for some companies, for the business community here, United States stands far away. So we need to encourage, these companies to figure out ways, how to encourage them, to commit and try, to export, their product, to the U.S. market. In that respect, what's your views on that? I mean, do you see hesitation, from some of the Greek companies to explore, the U.S. markets or not? Mr. Middle East.
Sure.
It's true that sometimes it seems far away. But I must tell you that by having you, having a great chamber in Greece, and I must congratulate you. I didn't say it just to say it at the beginning of my first speech, but I believe that you are working really professionally and you are helping a lot. And you created also a lot of useful tools in order to help the Greek companies to communicate with the other part of the Atlantic. So by using tools like this chamber and by creating more, I think that we should put away this hesitation. It's true that they feel that it's easier to go and export in Italy or in Germany or in France because the rules are the same there. So most of the times you have only to make the deal, not to see how you will change your products in a way that they will be accepted in that country. Because by having the same rules, then you have to do. We know that we have good products. We know that we have good companies. What we need to do is to find a way, and the digital part will help a lot, to find a way to put them in the same table. And I'm repeating that. You are a good tool on that. We are going to ask your help on that. forums like this are important, and I think that it's a good idea to create forums on which we will help you with Enterprise Greece and to do some things together in order to put the real companies on the table and to make not only panels but also working groups on which we can work together in order to find solutions. You know, it's not only how many miles away it's a country, but it's also how many loss is the two countries. And on this, we need to find solutions that, because, you know, it's not only all problems between the EU and the United States. I think we're going to be in a new era on that by 2021, and it will be a different policy from the United States, I think, and I hope, from the one side. But on the other side, it's really crucial that it's really crucial to solve the problems that has nothing to do with the EU, because it's not only this. From our side, by helping the companies, the Greek companies, to be at this level that it will be no problem to be accepted the products in the US market, but on the other hand, to help at the negotiations with the US government to be not so unfair sometimes because of the big agreements and the big problems that sometimes they have, like Boeing and Airbus. So not this to affect the really, really good and special products from Greece. So there are two things on which cases like your chamber are examples that can help in order to have a better future for our exports.
I'll reply to those after Mr. Stamatopoulos say his views, because I want to really, you know, say a few things after. But Mr. Stamatopoulos, what's your idea here? What you think about what I asked before?
Well, I think green companies are not so much hesitant in exporting, and I don't think that in 2020 the notion of distance is the same as it was, like, for example, 20 or 30 years ago. I do believe that we need to be very close to them. Enterprise Greece, ECIO, we need to go and door by door and try to explain them all the opportunities that we are providing them, the tools and the services. And this is what I believe ECIO at least should do for 2021. We have a market which is configured of micro and small and medium enterprises, and those are the enterprises that we need to focus. Big, large corporations, they know how to export, they know how to promote their products. What we need to do is to go to the small exporters, make them understand, make them feel confident that we are next to them, and that ECIO will be able to at least insure them for the invoices or for the whole turnover. So I believe that this is something that we are working on, and this is something that we should be able to do by next year.
Thank you. Replying to to the comments of Mr. Smirlis, first of all, as an AmCham, we are really very glad, you know, in collaborating with the authorities, with the government, with all the agencies, because we believe that only united we can really, you know, succeed in such markets. And we are open, you know, for any collaboration. And really, we would like to help, you know, in order, you know, to exceed, you know, the numbers, you know, to increase the numbers in the US, our exports in the US, because we believe that there is a lot of ground, you know, for exporting there. Just looking at the numbers and comparing, let's say, from other countries in Europe, you know, the exchange and the trade balance between US and those countries, I think we still have a lot of ground, you know, to cover. And I believe that with our collaboration, definitely we can really succeed on that. Gentlemen, I don't know whether you want to say a few last words. It was a pleasure, you know, to discuss with you. We are looking forward, you know, to work with you in the near future. And thank you very much, you know, for your collaboration, but also, you know, for being with us today in the forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dunias. Thank you.
Dear friends, αγαπητοί φίλοι, είμαστε στο τέλος, φτάσαμε στο τέλος αυτής της όμορφης εκδήλωσης. Πιστεύουμε ότι καλύψαμε πολλά από τα θέματα τα οποία θα θέλατε να μάθετε κάποια πράγματα για αυτά. Σαν επιμελητήριο είμαστε στη διάθεσή σας μαζί με τους συνεργαζόμενους φορείς, που όπως είπαμε μόνο με συνεργασία μπορούμε να πάμε μπροστά και ειδικά σε αγορές όπως είναι η Αμερική. Είμαστε λοιπόν στη διάθεσή σας και το TradeUSA, το τμήμα μας, το επιμελητήριο και όλοι να μπορούμε να βοηθήσουμε και να συνεργαστούμε για αυτήν την σημαντική προσπάθεια για το καλό της χώρας μας. Με αυτά τα λίγα λόγια, σε ευχαριστώ. Να ευχαριστήσω και το Enterprise Greece για την υποστήριξή του, να ευχαριστήσω και την DK και τον Δημήτριο Καραβασίλη, την Τίνα την Αθανασίου για την υπέροχη δουλειά της, αλλά και όλους εσάς που μας παρακολουθήσατε. Ευχαριστώ και καλό βράδυ σε όλους.